Hi guys. Tonight we travel back tens of thousands of years, far beyond the reach of cities or even villages, to a time when the world itself felt half asleep under blankets of ice. The air tastes like iron and snow. Your breath crystallizes the moment it leaves your lips. You are a fragile animal in a landscape built to test the limits of endurance. And yet, somehow, your ancestors survived night after night, curled against the cold so sharp it could cut through bone. You probably wouldn't survive this one. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Tell me in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is for you. Now, dim the lights. The night hums with stillness. You stand in an ice age valley where the wind scrapes across frozen grass and distant glaciers groan in their sleep. The stars above look sharp enough to pierce your skin, and the Milky Way stretches from horizon to horizon like a pale road to nowhere. You pull your furs tighter and listen. Somewhere nearby, a mammoth shifts its weight, slow, patient, indifferent. You are small beneath that immensity, but that smallness is part of the calm. The cold becomes almost sacred when you realize it has ruled this place longer than any creature alive. Imagine being one of the first humans to greet such a night. Your world ends at the edge of firelight, and everything beyond that orange circle is mystery. Some of it curious, some of it hungry. The darkness presses close, filled with soft crunches of snow and the faint creak of ice in trees. Your own heart sounds loud enough to betray your location. Historians still debate whether Ice Age nights were darker or lighter than ours. Some argue that reflected light from snow and the lack of pollution made them glow faintly even beneath the stars. Others say the cold sharpened the void, creating a night blacker than anything you've ever known. Either way, you would have learned quickly that darkness is not empty. It's full of whispers, creaks, and unseen eyes. The mainstream understanding is that early Homo sapiens spread into frigid Europe and northern Asia roughly 40,000 years ago, encountering glacial winds that could drop temperatures below -20 degrees Celsius. Archaeologists have found evidence of their presence in places where even the wolves hesitated. To survive there, they didn't just need tools, they needed a philosophy of warmth. A quirky but telling detail emerges from some ancient hearth sites. Layered ash deposits several centimeters thick, suggesting that fire was not just for cooking but for sleeping. People raked warm ash beneath them as insulation, like a primitive electric blanket that glowed instead of buzzed. When the heat faded, someone would stir, add more wood, and keep the rhythm going. You can almost hear the soft sigh as warmth returned to stiffened limbs. You squat by such a fire now. The flames hiss and spit resin, scenting the air with pine and animal fat. Each spark feels like an act of defiance against extinction. The cold waits outside the light, patient. You hold out your palms and study the contrast, the red glow of blood just beneath your skin against the white-blue frost creeping along the edges of your shelter. The sky above ripples faintly with green aurora. It's strange to think of beauty existing in such cruelty. Yet here it is, silent curtains of light dancing across a ceiling of frozen air, reflected in the glassy eyes of your companions. You all watch it for a while, wordless, because language itself still feels young and fragile. Perhaps you grunt, gesture, smile faintly. In this stillness, sleep comes not from comfort, but from exhaustion. When your eyelids start to droop, you shuffle closer to the fire. The ground beneath you is a mosaic of frost, soot, and crushed bone, evidence of countless nights before. You press your side against the bulk of another sleeper, maybe a sibling or a fellow hunter. Warmth leaks from one body into the next until, for a few hours, you all form a single creature of breath and heartbeat. Historians still argue whether early humans experienced sleep in the same consolidated way we do now. Some evidence suggests it was segmented 2 or 3 shorter sleeps, divided by moments of wakefulness to tend the fire or watch for predators. If so, you might wake at midnight, stretch stiff legs, and stare into the embers while your companions snore. The fire's heart pulses orange and gold like a living thing. You feed it a branch, listen to the sap hiss, and feel the heat lick your face. You might think survival like this would harden people, but what it actually bred was tenderness, the kind born of shared dependence. You couldn't afford to hate the person beside you when their warmth might save your life before morning. Each night became a quiet contract of mutual trust. I keep the fire alive, you guard my sleep. The cold tries to enter you through every pore. Your breath fogs, and frost gathers in your eyelashes. You pull a wolf pelt up to your chin, its musky scent mixing with smoke. The sound of the wind outside is steady now, less like a threat, more like a lullaby composed by the earth itself. You feel your pulse slowing, your thoughts melting into the rhythm of crackling wood. One last glance beyond the glow, something moves out there, maybe a shadow of a reindeer herd or a predator that caught your scent, but the fire draws a circle of safety, invisible but absolute. You exhale, you drift. The cold is still there, waiting, but it can't reach you tonight. And as you sink into the half-dream of early humanity, the strangest realization comes. This is peace. Primitive, fragile, temporary, but peace all the same. The world may be ice, but inside your small sphere of light and breathing bodies, there is warmth, there is continuity, there is life stubbornly refusing to end. Tomorrow you'll move again, searching for better shelter, for food, for something like comfort. But for now, you let the night claim you, just as your ancestors did, wrapped in fur, guarded by flame, trusting that dawn will come before the cold does. You wake to the sound of air moving through stone. It's not quite a wind, more like a breath, slow and deliberate, drawn through the hollow ribs of the earth. You blink against dim, flickering light as morning seeps into the mouth of your shelter. For a moment, you forget where you are. Then you remember. A cave, rough and damp, halfway up a limestone cliff. The kind of place where the rock itself feels alive, where echoes fold back on themselves until you can't tell your voice from the mountain's sigh. Your fingers brush against frost-glazed fur. The fire has gone out, reduced to a memory of warmth buried under ash. You pull yourself closer to the wall, where the air is still and heavy, and breathe in that peculiar smell: smoke, stone, and something almost sweet, marrow fat burned the night before. This is where your ancestors slept most often, inside Earth's open wounds. Caves, ledges, the hollows left by toppled boulders. Anything that broke the wind could become a home. The mainstream historical record shows that these natural shelters were the difference between life and death during the Ice Age. They were ready-made rooms in a world that offered little else. Some caves even bear soot-stained ceilings and charred floors, proof that people used them not just as short stops but as sanctuaries for entire winters. You can almost picture it, a group of weary travelers trudging through snow, finding a shadow in the cliffside, testing the air for bear scent before daring to enter. Their torches flare, sending amber reflections down mineral walls. The sound of dripping water promises not luxury, but life. There's something deeply human about the instinct to crawl into a hollow and claim it. Even animals knew the rule: foxes in burrows, cave bears in hibernation, birds tucked beneath ice-crusted branches. But humans? They made these spaces different. They turned them into places of rest, not just refuge. Some archaeologists believe that the arrangement of fires, bones, and sleeping spots in ancient caves hints at early social order: elders near the warmest center, hunters along the edges, children tucked between adults for safety. Historians still argue whether this pattern was necessity or ritual, but the intimacy of such arrangements speaks for itself. You shift your weight and run your hand along the wall. The stone is smooth in places where countless bodies have leaned before. Maybe this very spot once held another person's back, another heartbeat trying to slow down enough for sleep. It's easy to imagine that ghosts of warmth cling to the rock, trapped in its pores, faint but enduring. Caves had their own dangers, though. They trapped heat, but also smoke. A quirky detail found in some prehistoric dwellings. People occasionally dug small vents through packed snow or earth to let the fumes escape primitive chimneys, carefully shaped to direct the air. Sometimes they miscalculated, and the fire would choke them awake, coughing and cursing. You might call that an early form of ventilation engineering born out of sheer stubbornness. Outside, the world remains merciless. The wind screams down the valley, dragging snow like knives. But inside, your breath sounds thick and private. You can almost hear the tiny drip of water freezing as it falls. This rhythm, the thaw, the freeze, the slow accretion of ice crystals on rock, was the Ice Age lullaby. You wouldn't call it soothing, but it was constant, dependable. As the day lightens, the cave mouth glows silver. Someone stirs beside you, muttering in a language half-formed and thick with sleep. You see frost in their hair, sparkling like dusted salt. They pull their hide tighter and grunt softly, a sound that might be irritation or affection, it's hard to tell. Humanity, even then, had mornings filled with grumpiness. When you crawl toward the entrance, the air bites. The snow outside has drifted high, sculpted into pale dunes by endless gusts. You can see tracks, reindeer, maybe, or woolly rhinoceros etched into the crusted surface. For a brief moment, you wonder what it must have felt like to sleep out there, exposed, without the rock's embrace. There are traces of that too. Fire rings built against stone ridges, rough shelters made from branches or bones. The people who used them were often on the move, never sure if they'd find the same spot again. Historians still debate whether cave dwellers were primarily nomadic or semi-settled. Some argue that they followed migrating herds, returning to known caves seasonally. Others believe they might have stayed longer, creating small winter communities before dispersing again. Either way, the rhythm of movement defined their sleep each new night, demanding a fresh calculation of safety versus exhaustion. You step just outside the entrance and feel the sun, weak and white, glance off your face. For a few moments it fools you into thinking warmth exists beyond imagination. The snow beneath your feet crunches like crushed glass. You spot a patch of trampled earth where last night's fire had been built. The ashes still steam faintly. You press your hand into them and feel the faint ghost of heat, like a memory slipping away. Returning inside, you find the group stirring, stretching, shivering, muttering soft sounds that might be laughter or complaint. Someone pokes at the embers, coaxing flame back to life with a handful of dry moss. The spark catches, blooming into orange. Shadows crawl across the ceiling, bringing the cave alive again. The scent of smoke thickens, clinging to every strand of fur, every inch of skin. In the half-light, you notice the walls bear marks, scratches, lines, faint ochre stains, perhaps art, or perhaps counting marks, or simply boredom etched into permanence. It's strange how even when fighting for survival, people still left signs that they were here, that they wanted to be remembered. Maybe it was their way of saying, "We existed through this night." One of your companions tosses a chunk of fat onto the flames. It hisses, spraying sparks. The cave ceiling sparkles with moisture, as if starlight had seeped underground. For a fleeting instant, you feel gratitude for the shelter, for the fire, for the fragile persistence of warmth. The Ice Age was a teacher, though not a gentle one. It taught humans to listen to rock and wind, to read the earth's silence for clues of danger and refuge alike. In those cold nights, sleep became more than rest, it became an act of faith. You closed your eyes, not knowing if you'd wake, and you did it anyway, again and again. As dusk returns, you glance toward the cave mouth. Outside, the world folds into blue shadow. Inside, the light trembles, steady and soft. You lie down on your side, bones pressed against fur and earth. The sound of others' breathing fills the space like a shared prayer. In that moment, the cave is not a tomb or a trap, it's a heartbeat carved into stone. You let your eyelids drift closed, feeling the weight of the mountain above you, protective rather than oppressive. Tomorrow will bring another journey, another shelter. But tonight, this hollow of rock and warmth is enough. The fire flickers again that night, not in a cave this time, but under a sky that stretches like a frozen ocean. You crouch in an open hollow between ridges, wind sighing through stone like a low flute. Sparks dance upward, defiant against the darkness. You feel it immediately, the rhythm between flame and breath, that fragile covenant humans made with fire, long before words could describe it. Most anthropologists agree that learning to control fire wasn't just the first step towards civilization, it was the first act of comfort. Before tools were perfected, before hunting was mastered, there was fire, a boundary between life and ice. You can almost imagine the discovery, some lightning strike, some curious wanderer daring to touch the embers left behind. Maybe pain came first, then wonder. You feed the flames with dry twigs. The crackle echoes across the valley, and for a brief moment, the cold retreats. Shadows bloom on the rocks behind you, bending and stretching like primitive paintings that move. The smell of burning wood mingles with animal fat, acrid but oddly soothing. It's a scent older than language, one your body somehow recognizes even now. Nearby, others gather close. Their faces glow with warmth and awe, eyes reflecting the firelight like amber glass. They huddle not for storytelling, not yet just for survival. One holds out a hand, another tosses a piece of resinous bark that flares bright blue before fading. It's mesmerizing. You realize that for them, this isn't just heat. It's a living thing that demands feeding, protecting, and respect. Archaeological evidence suggests that Ice Age fires were small and deliberate, never bonfires, but compact hearts of heat maintained carefully to conserve fuel. People learned to dig shallow pits lined with stone or bone shards to hold the coals and keep them alive through the night. Some groups even carried embers wrapped in moss or animal dung when they moved camps, ensuring that the next shelter would already hold warmth. A curious fragment found in prehistoric sites tells its own quiet story. Thin layers of soot trapped beneath later floors, showing that generations built hearths in the same spots again and again. The ground itself remembered each fire, layer upon layer, like pages in a diary of survival. You can almost hear the whispered continuity. Here we lived, here we slept, here the fire kept us. No one's quite sure whether early humans viewed fire as divine or simply essential. Some experts suggest that the flicker of light inspired early notions of spirit, of life within things that burn. Others believe fire was purely practical, one more tool in the endless negotiation with cold. You can't help thinking it was both. After all, when you stare too long into flame, it begins to stare back. The wind shifts, and smoke curls toward you. It burns your eyes, but you stay close anyway. The light feels like a companion. Beyond its reach, wolves prowl, their eyes catching starlight. The faint crunch of snow travels across the night air, steady, deliberate. You can sense them without seeing. The fire pops, throwing sparks high, and the wolves pause. For now, you've drawn a line between predator and prey, using nothing more than light and heat. Imagine the soundscape, the crack of sap in burning wood, the sigh of steam from melting frost, the gentle shifting of sleeping bodies. Every noise is amplified by silence. The fire becomes a metronome for existence, its rhythm steady, almost hypnotic. You find yourself matching its pulse, each breath a small surrender to the calm it offers. Curiously enough, traces of red ochre and charred bone found near Ice Age hearths suggest that fire was more than warmth, it was a gathering point for imagination. People might have used it for early rituals, painting with smoke, whispering thanks to unseen forces. Maybe that's where storytelling began, around the fire's glow, when eyes reflected light and minds reflected memory. You stretch your legs toward the flame, feeling the warmth soak through layers of hide. The smell of tanned fur fills your nostrils, earthy and reassuring. Someone hums a low tone, almost lost beneath the crackle. Perhaps it's not a song, but a rhythm meant to mimic the fire itself. It lulls the group, synchronizing heartbeats with the shifting light. Experts continue to debate how people kept fires alive through the endless nights. Some say they used slow-burning logs stacked in teepee shapes. Others propose a system of alternating green and dry wood to regulate burn speed. Whatever the technique, one mistake meant freezing before dawn. You imagine the quiet panic when a flame died too early, the rush to strike flint, the trembling hands trying to coax a spark from stubborn stone. And yet, every successful fire was a triumph, a small miracle repeated thousands of times across millennia. You realize that these people didn't conquer nature, they negotiated with it, night after night. Fire gave them permission to rest. The glow softens now. The wood collapses inward, sending up a brief shower of sparks like tiny shooting stars. You watch them fade, one by one. Sleep comes easier with that rhythm. The hiss, the pop, the breathing of others around you. You lie down beside the embers, careful not to let your fur touch the flame. The warmth lingers, the air thick with smoke and quiet contentment. There's an intimacy to this moment, the shared silence of people who've earned the right to rest. Outside, ice stretches to the horizon, an endless sheet of indifference. But here, in this circle of light, humanity glows like a pulse in the frozen heart of the world. Before your eyes close, you glance upward. The stars have shifted. The aurora flickers faint green across the edge of the sky, and the shadows of your companions blur into the orange breath of fire. It feels, just for a second, as if the universe itself is exhaling with you, calm, infinite, and still alive. Tomorrow, there will be more walking, more hunger, more wind. But tonight, you sleep inside a miracle, a small flame that keeps death at bay, a spark of stubbornness that would one day build cities and hearths and homes. The fire hums, the snow whispers. You drift away, wrapped in warmth older than memory. When morning comes, it doesn't exactly arrive. It sneaks in, pale and hesitant, like light that has forgotten what warmth feels like. You open your eyes to find the fire a smudge of grey ash, its breath gone, its bones cooling fast. Frost traces your eyelashes. You stretch beneath your bundle of furs, and they crackle faintly, stiffened by a night's condensation. The air is sharp, tasting faintly of smoke and old leather. You sit up, and the world around you is a watercolor of white and silver. Most archaeologists agree that the turning point of Ice Age survival came not with sharper spears but with better coverings. The so-called fur revolution reshaped how humans faced the night. Long before woven fabrics existed, hides and pelts were their armor against extinction. Each skin told a story, an animal pursued across snow, a kill earned at immense cost, a transformation from prey to protection. You wrap the pelt tighter around your shoulders. Its inner side is greasy, matted and soft. Its outer hairs still gleam faintly in the cold Sunday. The scent clings to you, animal musk, sweat, and the faint tang of tallow rubbed in to keep it supple. It's not pleasant, but it feels like life itself. Somewhere deep in your bones, you know this smell means safety. Excavations reveal that people of the Upper Paleolithic stitched these hides with sinew threads, sometimes reinforced with bone needles fine enough to pierce fur without tearing. The effort behind each garment was immense, scraping, drying, smoking, softening. A single coat could take days, maybe weeks to make. But when night fell and temperatures plunged, that coat was the thin border between breath and silence. One peculiar discovery from Siberian sites shows how inventive these early tailors became. Fragments of fur sewn with alternating layers, reindeer inside for warmth, wolf outside for water resistance. It's the ancestor of your modern parka, stitched not by fashion but by instinct. Imagine them sitting close to firelight, hands raw and trembling, threading sinew through tough hide by the flicker of flame, whispering to themselves that this might keep the children alive tonight. No one's quite sure whether people hunted specifically for fur or simply used every part of the animals they killed. Some experts think certain species like Arctic fox or wolverine were prized less for meat and more for their pelts. Their fur had an uncanny ability to repel frost, making them ideal for lining hoods. Others disagree, arguing that any warmth was worth taking, no matter the source. The debate endures, caught somewhere between necessity and craft. You shift your weight and feel the layers you're wearing. Inner furs lined with soft hide, outer cloak tied with a bone clasp, boots packed with dry grass for insulation. It's cumbersome, but comforting. Each layer muffles the world, dulls the sound of your own heartbeat until everything feels wrapped in cotton. The cold still bites your face, but the rest of you is cocooned, hidden from winter's teeth. There's a faint, rhythmic sound, the brushing of fur against fur as others stir nearby. It's intimate in a strangely domestic way. Someone laughs softly, a breathy, exhausted sound. A child sneezes, and an adult pulls the fur tighter around them both. The air fills with a kind of contented grumble, the universal human complaint of waking too early. Curiously enough, traces of ochre pigment have been found on some preserved hides. Researchers suspect it was used not for decoration, but for function. Red ochre's minerals help repel insects and preserve leather. Still, you can't help imagining that even in that endless cold, someone wanted color. Maybe a splash of red on a hood or sleeve reminded them that warmth existed somewhere. The wind outside the shelter keens low, threading through cracks in stone. You glance toward the opening. Beyond it, the landscape stretches rolling snowdrifts, faint streaks of blue shadow, a sun that never climbs high. Nothing moves except smoke from your dying fire. And yet, despite the silence, the world feels inhabited, thick with invisible presence. Most anthropologists believe these people organized their nights communally, furs spread wide, bodies forming overlapping circles to conserve heat. You picture it, half a dozen sleepers curled close, faces hidden beneath pelts, the smell of smoke and skin mingling until everything becomes one living thing. Beneath those layers, warmth pooled slowly, like water shed between cupped hands. Experts still disagree on whether such close sleeping led to the origins of family groups or simply reflected necessity. Perhaps affection came later, growing out of habit. You wonder, does love begin with shared warmth? The thought feels too modern, yet it lingers as you look around at these bundled forms breathing quietly in unison. You reach to shake snow from your outer cloak. The flakes sparkle like powdered glass. For a fleeting moment, you imagine what this same act would look like 30,000 years later. Someone brushing snow off a down jacket on a city street, unaware that their gesture has roots in the same survival instinct. The line between then and now thins until it feels transparent. A faint chirp breaks the quiet. A bird, of all things, somewhere among frostbitten branches. You smile despite yourself. Even in the Ice Age, life refused to quit. That small voice, piping through the cold, is proof that the world never fully surrendered to the freeze. Someone tosses a fresh pelt near the fire pit. You see its inside steaming faintly, newly scraped, still warm from the animal's body. It's unpleasant to think about, yet you understand the gratitude behind it. Nothing goes to waste here. Warmth demands sacrifice, and everyone knows it. The fur will dry by nightfall, ready to join the growing pile that forms your bedding. One fascinating clue from archaeological digs in France suggests that people sometimes layered their bedding with alternating furs and grasses. The grass absorbed moisture and kept the fur dry. The design is shockingly practical, primitive insulation at its best. You can almost hear the rustle as someone spreads the grass. Careful, methodical, making the ground less cruel. As dusk returns, you lie down again, cocooned beneath overlapping hides. The warmth is immediate, close, almost suffocating at first. Then your body adjusts. The smell of animal fat mingles with the faint sweetness of smoke. You pull one edge tighter, listening to the faint pop of frost melting near your ear. Outside, snow falls silently, a soft applause for another day survived. You close your eyes, feeling the rough fur brush your cheek. There's no softness here, but there is security, the kind that comes not from luxury but from endurance. Beneath these furs the night can't find you. Not easily. You smile at that thought, and the sound is swallowed by the dark. The night grows colder again, sharper, as if the world itself has forgotten mercy. The stars blink through a veil of frost haze, and your breath curls into ribbons of mist that vanish almost instantly. Around you, the camp is a patchwork of firs, smoke, and faint murmurs. Everyone is lying close now, so close that individual boundaries have disappeared. Most anthropologists agree that Ice Age people didn't just share warmth by accident, they mastered the physics of proximity. When the temperature fell below survival limits, human bodies became heaters, organic furnaces powered by food, fire, and faith in each other. What you might call cuddling today was a tactic back then, one that balanced affection and calculation in equal measure. You lie wedged between two companions, the press of shoulders and knees forming a cocoon. The heat radiates slowly, pooling between bodies, trapped under layers of fur. There's a rhythm to the breathing, a rise and fall like waves on some forgotten sea. It feels almost hypnotic, the sound of survival orchestrated through flesh and bone. Curiously enough, evidence of this practice survives not in words, but in bones. Archaeologists studying Ice Age burials have found skeletons positioned close together, sometimes arm over arm, their arrangement suggesting familiarity rather than chance. Whether they were kin or companions, no one knows. Some researchers propose that these postures reflect habitual sleeping positions, preserved in death as in life. Others see ritual or mourning. The truth may be both intimacy born of necessity, honored even in the grave. The fur over you is heavy, smelling faintly of musk and smoke. Beneath it, warmth builds until you can feel moisture gathering in the fabric. Someone shifts beside you, muttering softly in their sleep, the sound halfway between a sigh and a growl. You smile into the dark. Even in this brutal world, there's something achingly human about the noises of sleep. Restless, imperfect, tender. Excavations in northern Europe show hearth arrangements surrounded by concentric circles of sleeping spaces. The closer to the fire, the older or more fragile the sleeper likely was. Younger hunters occupied the outer rings, guarding the warmth and the rest of their kin. It was a simple geometry of care, dictated by practicality. But within that circle, warmth was a shared language. You shift slightly, your arm brushing another's hand. The contact startles you at first. It's cold, rough, but it lingers, grounding you. In this world, touch is not a luxury. It's information, a reminder that someone else is alive, breathing, fighting the same battle against the same night. There's an old notion passed among scholars of human behavior that communal sleeping shaped the first feelings of trust. Lying beside others required surrender. You closed your eyes while they watched over the fire, and they did the same when it was your turn. That pattern of exchange, repeated thousands of nights across generations, might have been the origin of something we'd later call society. A peculiar hint of this intimacy shows up in traces of smoke residue on fur linings and tools. Some hearths contain multiple fire pits, each smaller than a campfire would need to be. Experts suggest these pocket fires were for pairs or small groups, personal warmth stations where companionship and practicality blurred. The image is almost domestic. 2 or 3 people huddled around their own flickering core of light, whispering softly before sleep. No one's entirely certain how close those early communities grew beyond survival. Some scientists think affection and emotional attachment were byproducts of cold itself, that people who depended on each other for warmth formed deeper bonds simply through repetition. Others argue that the connection was spiritual long before it was practical, that sharing heat symbolized life shared. The debate is ongoing, yet every trace left behind feels intimate. The soundscape of night is quieter now. Snow muffles everything, even breath. You can hear your pulse in your ears, steady and calm. Beneath the layers of fur, the mixed scent of skin, smoke and tallow blends into something strangely comforting an ancestral perfume of endurance. You imagine this same scene repeating across the world, in the valleys of France, the steppes of Siberia, the high plains of what is now Mongolia, small clusters of people curled together, trusting warmth more than distance. The same crackle of fire, the same low murmurs of the half asleep, the same unspoken gratitude that bodies even fragile mortal ones could outsmart the cold for one more night. Most researchers agree that this instinct survives even now. You feel it when you draw close to another person on a freezing night, when shared warmth makes you sigh with relief. The echo of those Ice Age nights lingers deep in our biology, a memory of closeness written into the nervous system itself. You shift again, feeling the steady pulse beside you. The body next to you smells of earth and smoke, alive and real. Outside, the cold presses like a weight, but in here, inside this web of breathing and shared heat, you can almost believe that winter has surrendered. A faint snore escapes someone at the edge of the group, low and steady. Another answers with a grunt. The rhythm of sleep fills the shelter. You close your eyes, sinking into that living warmth. Every heartbeat around you becomes part of one shared rhythm, one defiance. Tomorrow the group will rise and move again toward food, towards safer ground. But tonight the cold stays outside, shut out by trust and proximity. You drift towards sleep knowing this. In the Ice Age, warmth was love, and love was survival. The night never truly ends in this age, it only dims and brightens, as though time itself is caught between breaths. You wake to the faint hiss of wind sneaking through the cracks of your shelter. The fire beside you has fallen into a dull red glow, its heart still pulsing, refusing to die completely. You stir, shoulders aching from the stiffness of sleep, and reach for a stick to prod the embers. A soft burst of light rewards your effort. Sparks leap, scatter, and fade into the smoky air. The smell of char and resin greets you like an old friend. You feed the embers with a handful of dry moss, then another of twigs. Slowly, the small pit brightens again, a heartbeat reawakening. Archaeological findings indicate that Ice Age survival often depended not on creating fire from scratch each night, but on keeping one alive. Firemaking was difficult and slow. Flint and pyrite needed to strike at just the right angle, with tinder dry enough to catch. Many groups learned to carry fire with them, preserving embers like sacred seeds wrapped in bark, dung, or moss. You can almost picture a traveler blowing softly into a small bundle, coaxing a faint orange glow back into flame. A curious practice discovered at Upper Paleolithic sites supports this. Shallow hollows dug near sleeping areas, each filled with layers of ash and charcoal, sometimes capped by a slab of stone. These were not for cooking but for preservation, tiny fire vaults built to trap warmth overnight. In the morning, a single breath could bring them back to life. You crouch beside your own fire now, watching the orange deepen to gold. The others still sleep, bundled under furs, faces half hidden. Their breaths rise like mist, slow and steady. The glow flickers across their features, softening them until they look almost peaceful. It's strange to think that the same light that could burn and destroy was also the gentlest thing they knew. Some researchers suggest that early humans treated their fires as living beings guarded, fed, and mourned when extinguished. Others disagree, arguing that the relationship was purely practical. Yet, when you spend enough nights keeping a flame alive through freezing dark, practicality and reverence begin to blur. You shift a log, sending a small shower of sparks spiraling upward. The sight is hypnotic, bright motes of life vanishing into the air. You blow gently on the coals, and the fire responds, crackling with gratitude. For a moment, you feel like a god of warmth, but one utterly dependent on the fragile magic you've kindled. One fascinating trace found in prehistoric hearths reveals the human struggle for efficiency. Alternating layers of different woods, birch for quick heat, pine for lasting embers, willow for smoke control. It's not random. It's an ancient form of thermal engineering, learned through endless trial and error. You imagine the quiet satisfaction of mastering that pattern, of seeing your fire last longer than the cold expected. Outside, snow falls again, thick and deliberate. The wind hums in the distance, but here, within the flicker's reach, you're untouched. The air feels heavy, thick with wood smoke and the faint sweetness of fat that once dripped into the ashes. You reach toward the warmth, palms glowing red in the light. The sensation is almost holy. No one's quite sure how many nights in a row these early wanderers could go without losing their flame. Some anthropologists think they traveled in shifts, one carrying the embers while others hunted or scouted. If that fire went out, the group might spend hours or days trying to rekindle it, exposed to the wind the whole time. It's hard to overstate the desperation that must have come with watching the last wisp of smoke vanish into nothing. A single mistake, forgetting to shield the coals, leaving too little ash, could mean frostbite by dawn. And yet, humanity learned persistence from this. Each glowing pit of embers became a teacher. Patience, timing, devotion. The lesson burned into memory as deeply as any scar. You add another branch. The flame leaps higher, and for a moment, the entire shelter glows amber. You can see the marks on the stone walls, smudges of soot from countless nights before. The patterns look like fingerprints of survival, or perhaps like small constellations made by hands. It's easy to forget how much thought went into something as simple as keeping a fire alive. You'd think survival was chaos and instinct, but it was also calculation. Each ember required management, tending, cooperation. You could sleep only if someone stayed awake to guard it. Most likely, that duty rotated, each person trading warmth for vigilance in turn. Evidence from sleeping site layers suggests this pattern, alternating patches of ash and footprints, as though someone got up regularly to stoke the flames. That rhythm might have divided the night into quiet intervals: wake, feed the fire, glance at the stars, sleep again. The kind of schedule modern humans might envy for its simplicity. The scholar in you wonders, did they dream about fire? Did the glow creep into their half-conscious thoughts? Maybe they saw it as a living boundary between death and dawn, and their dreams were filled with its colors. Or perhaps they dreamed of nothing at all, just warmth, a sensation so rare it needed no imagination to make it beautiful. You look at your companions. One turns in their sleep, mumbling. Another pulls the fur higher, instinctively drawing closer to the fire's light. The room feels smaller now, safer. The outside world, the glaciers, the beasts, the vast indifference has retreated for a while. You lie down again, letting your back face the heat. The warmth seeps through hide and skin, soft and steady. The fire whispers as it burns, a private language between flame and air. You feel your eyelids growing heavy, the orange glow pulsing behind them. The world outside can freeze if it wishes. Inside, the ember lives on. Its small defiance glows brighter than the stars. Tomorrow, someone else will wake and feed it again, and the night will yield just a little longer. Humanity's first inheritance wasn't land or tool. It was this ritual, to tend, to guard, to keep the warmth breathing. The sky outside has turned the color of bruised silver. The wind has not rested in days. It moans softly through the ribs of a great carcass, a mammoth skeleton half buried in snow, its bones jutting from the earth like the remains of a cathedral built for giants. You and your kin move slowly around it, studying the pale arches of ivory that curve against the horizon. Most archaeologists believe these bones were not just leftovers of hunts, they became the scaffolding of life. In the endless tundra, where trees were scarce and stones frozen fast, mammoth bones served as pillars, doorframes, and rafters. Excavations across Siberia and Ukraine reveal entire shelters fashioned from them, tusks arched overhead, ribs interlocked, hides stretched taut across the frame like walls of living skin. The design was ingenious, efficient, and hauntingly beautiful. You stand now before one such shelter. The entrance is low, a narrow gap covered with overlapping skins that move gently with the wind. Inside, The light changes, filtered through layers of hide, until it becomes soft and amber, like candlelight diffused through flesh. The air smells of bone dust, grease, and smoke. It's not pleasant, but it's warmer than the storm outside. A curious discovery made at the Mezirik site in Ukraine shows that some of these bone huts were meticulously arranged, tusks placed in symmetrical arcs, mammoth skulls forming a foundation circle. Researchers even found traces of pigment splashed across the interior, perhaps decoration, perhaps ritual. Whatever its purpose, it proved that even in a world of ice and death, humans built homes with care, not chaos. You run your hand along one of the massive tusks. It's smooth, cold, but faintly oily to the touch. Underneath your fingers is the weight of time itself, the memory of an animal so vast it once shook the ground when it walked. Now its remains keep you alive. You feel a whisper of gratitude, the kind that doesn't need words. Most experts agree that these mammoth bone dwellings could sustain small groups for weeks or even months. The hides layered across them acted as insulation, trapping the warmth of the central fire. Some had pits dug into the floor to conserve heat and provide space for sleeping. The roofs were heavy with snow, but that weight only strengthened the insulation, a paradox humans learned to trust. Inside your own shelter, the fire crackles gently in its stone-lined pit. Shadows climb across the tusks like fingers of light. Around the flames, tools rest neatly: flint blades, a wooden spear, a pouch of dried marrow. The place feels more like a home than a camp. You realize that home, even then, wasn't about comfort. It was about endurance, about shaping the world enough to survive inside it. No one's entirely sure whether these bone huts were permanent or seasonal. Some scholars argue that families returned to the same structures year after year, repairing them with new hides. Others think they were temporary, built when luck brought down a mammoth, then abandoned once the food ran out. Either way, they stand as early architecture born from hunger and genius combined. The sound inside is muted, thick air, muffled by fur and snow. Every movement is soft. You hear the faint rustle of grass under the bedding, the gentle exhale of a sleeper. It's as though the entire hut breathes with you. Outside, the wind howls, but here it's a distant rumor, its anger deflected by ivory walls. A peculiar trace discovered near one such dwelling reveals something deeply human. Small piles of beads and ochre near sleeping areas, as if people decorated their bedrooms. Perhaps they wanted beauty beside them, or maybe those objects carried meaning, charms, tokens of protection. It's easy to imagine a mother pressing a carved bead into her child's palm before sleep, whispering a sound that wasn't yet a word for safety. You lie down now upon a layer of furs stretched across woven reeds. The warmth from the fire drifts toward you, heavy and thick. The tusks above glow faintly in the flicker, giving the illusion that you rest inside the ribcage of a living creature. You can almost believe it. This house is part animal, part earth, part memory. Experts continue to discuss how these shelters were built with such precision without modern tools. Some think the builders heated tusks in fires to bend them gently into shape. Others suggest they were already curved perfectly by nature. Either way, the design feels instinctive, born not from sketches but from rhythm and observation. The human eye, even in the Ice Age, could see structure in chaos. You reach up, touching the arch above your head. The tusk hums faintly when you knock it, a hollow echo that sounds like distant thunder. It's eerie, but soothing. The fire crackles, the snow outside thickens, and the shelter becomes a cocoon of warmth and color. Curiously enough, residue analysis on mammoth bone walls has shown traces of smoke and fat, evidence that people smeared them with animal grease to seal out drafts. You picture the process: hands gloved in hide, spreading the slick substance over ivory until the surface gleamed. It must have smelled terrible, but inside, the air stayed still and warm. Someone stirs near you. A child whimpers softly, then quiets as another body shifts closer. The crackling fire fills the silence again, joined by the occasional snap of freezing wood. You can feel the heat radiating from the pit, washing over your face in waves. As you drift towards sleep, your eyes follow the curve of the tusks upward. They meet at the top, crossing like arms in prayer. The flicker of firelight plays along their length, painting them gold for a heartbeat before fading to shadow. For a brief moment, you see something almost sacred in the shape, a kind of cathedral made not for gods, but for survival itself. Tomorrow, you'll wake to the same endless white horizon, to the same hunger, the same cold. But tonight, inside this strange house of bones and skin, you are warm, and that is enough. You close your eyes, breathing in the scent of smoke and ivory. The walls creak faintly, as if the mammoth spirit still moves within them. Maybe it does. You sleep inside its memory, protected by what once was strength made flesh. Outside, the wind roars again, but you no longer hear it. Inside the bones, you are home. Snow swirls like dust from a broken sky. The wind moans low across the plain, sweeping against your shelter of bone and hide, and still the cold seeps in persistent, clever, almost sentient. You huddle closer to the fire and feel its breath on your face, soft but finite. Even here, in this careful nest of tusks and furs, warmth feels temporary, as if the universe keeps reminding you how small your flame really is. And then someone does something unexpected. They step outside into the storm, gather snow in their hands, and pack it against the walls. You almost shout a reflex against what seems like madness, but you stop, because when they finish, the wind's whistle fades to a hush, and inside the shelter, the air stills, as though wrapped in silence. Excavations in northern Eurasia show traces of this astonishing logic. Snow packed along outer walls, layered deliberately. What looks suicidal at first, burying a home under ice, was brilliance in disguise. Compact snow, dense and dry, insulates against both wind and heat loss. The colder it became outside, the warmer it stayed within. Early humans discovered that the very thing that killed could also protect. Most researchers agree this discovery probably came by accident, perhaps during a storm so brutal that snow drifted naturally over a shelter and the people inside noticed, come morning, that it had saved their lives. From that moment on, the lesson was never forgotten. You didn't always fight the cold. Sometimes, you let it work for you. You kneel now beside the wall, pressing your palm to the packed snow. It's cold, yes, but the cold doesn't move, it stops here, halted by its own density. The firelight flickers against it, making the surface glow faintly blue. It's beautiful in a quiet, mathematical way. You realize that this isn't just survival, it's adaptation made art. Curiously enough, a few Ice Age sites show circular depressions where snow and ice might have been intentionally shaped into low domes, rudimentary versions of what you'd recognize centuries later as igloos. Scholars hesitate to draw direct lines between these and the Arctic peoples who perfected such designs millennia afterward, but the resemblance is tempting. You can almost see the connection, a lineage of logic carved through snow and time. Inside your shelter, the air smells faintly of wet hide and wood smoke. The damp makes the fur heavy, but it also seals in warmth. You rub your hands together, feeling blood return to your fingertips. The crackle of the fire sounds different now, muffled, private, like it's speaking only to you. No one's entirely sure whether Ice Age groups understood the physics behind this insulation, but evidence suggests they were startlingly observant. They watched how burrowing animals survived foxes, marmots, even wolves, and imitated their habits. Snow dens offered steady temperatures, a buffer from wind, and even some acoustic comfort. It's likely the idea spread not by words, but by witnessing the ancient form of science. Try, fail, learn, remember. The ground beneath you is layered with grass, reeds, and the dried remains of moss. When you shift your weight, it rustles softly. Beneath that, there's frost, but you hardly feel it. Heat from the fire radiates upward, caught between the layers of bedding and the new snow shell outside. The warmth is gentle now, not fierce but steady. It feels earned. You glance around. The others are already half asleep, bodies curved toward the fire in instinctive symmetry. Their faces glow orange, lips parted in silent dreams. It's strange how quiet they seem now that the wind is gone. The world outside has vanished, erased by snow. Inside, time feels suspended. Experts continue to discuss whether such snow-insulated shelters were planned constructions or opportunistic responses to blizzards. Some archaeologists believe people built partial barriers and let nature finish the job, while others argue they sculpted them intentionally. Either way, these makeshift igloos marked a turning point, humanity learning to make peace with cold rather than flee from it. A fascinating observation from climatological modeling suggests that under certain ice age conditions, temperatures inside a snow-packed shelter could rise to near freezing, dangerously warm, paradoxically speaking, but survivable. Add a fire, and the small dome could reach temperatures of 10 or even 15 degrees Celsius, while the world outside plunged below -40. You can almost hear the sighs of relief from the people who discovered that miracle. You shift, pulling your fur tighter. The air near the fire feels moist now, the snow walls sweating slightly from the heat. Tiny droplets form, glimmering in the flicker. You dip a finger into one and taste it mineral, ancient, clean. It's the flavor of the ice age itself, distilled into a bead of water. There's something profound in the thought that snow, so feared, became a friend. You imagine the early nights before this knowledge, the raw panic when storms buried everything, when people clawed at drifts thinking they'd die entombed. And then one night they slept through the storm and woke alive. From then on, the lesson was passed down not in words but in gestures. Pile the snow higher. Trust the white silence. No one knows what they called these shelters, perhaps nothing at all. Language was still fluid then, half sung, half breathed. But maybe they had a sound for it, a soft hum meaning safe, or still, or home. You lie back now, watching how the firelight pulses against the curved wall, painting ripples of color through the frozen surface. It looks like a heartbeat orange, blue, orange again. You can hear it too, faintly. The drip of thawing snow, the exhale of warmth meeting ice. It feels like the planet itself breathing. Outside, another gust roars and collapses harmlessly against your wall of snow. The shelter holds. You smile. It's the quiet victory of logic over terror. Humans didn't defeat the cold by conquering it. They learned to listen. The Ice Age, brutal as it was, rewarded the listeners. You turn your head toward the others. One murmurs in sleep, another stirs and reaches unconsciously toward the fire. The air is thick with heat now, a rare indulgence. You feel your eyelids grow heavy, your body melting into the ground. Tomorrow, you'll dig out the entrance, shake snow from the hides, and step into the glare of another frozen day. But for now, you close your eyes and let the snow hum around you, its soft silence pressing gently against your heartbeat. The fire glows low, breathing in rhythm with your breath. You don't fight the cold anymore. You let it cradle you. And in that surrender lies the truest warmth of all. By the time the wind calms, the world outside has changed shape. What was once a plain of endless white is now a soft, uneven blanket of glittering ridges. The sun glances low across it, pale and cold, casting shadows that seem deeper than they should be. You step outside, crunching through the crust, and your breath bursts into the air like smoke from some hidden forge. Every step sounds louder than it should because this is a world that listens. You walk slowly toward the horizon, watching for movement. The stillness here is deceptive. It hides life in small folds of snow. Somewhere beneath your feet, a mouse sleeps in a burrow of grass. Over the next rise, a herd of reindeer trudges east, their breath rising in columns. And above them all, a hawk glides, wings outstretched, moving like a shadow detached from the ground. Archaeological evidence suggests that Ice Age humans were never entirely still. They followed herds across the frozen continents, chasing food, warmth, and seasons. For them, sleep wasn't a luxury of safety, it was a strategy of timing. You rested when the herd rested. You dreamed when the weather allowed it. Some nights you lay in a snow-packed shelter. Others, you curled in a shallow pit beneath the stars, your only roof the trembling lights of the aurora. You kneel beside a cluster of tracks broad, cloven, freshly pressed into the snow. Reindeer, maybe 24 of them. Their path cuts across the valley like a scar. You glance toward the far end of the tracks where they fade into distance. That's where you'll go next. Always moving, always chasing. Most anthropologists believe this nomadic rhythm shaped how humans slept. In the Ice Age, rest was light and fractured, a collection of brief surrenders rather than long dreams. You might sleep for an hour, wake to the crack of ice, then drift again, body trained to listen even in slumber. The pattern is echoed in some modern hunter-gatherer societies, polyphasic sleep, they call it now, though back then it was simply what worked. You remember last night's warmth, the quiet breath of the fire, the soft whisper of snow against the walls. It seems impossibly distant now. The cold gnaws at your fingers through layers of hide. Still, you move. Because in this world, stillness is death. Curiously enough, remnants found at Ice Age campsites show signs of repeated abandonment, fire pits left half-burned, tools scattered mid-use. It suggests people moved fast when opportunity came, or when danger drew close. Sleep wasn't something you returned to. It was something you carried with you, tucked behind your eyes, waiting for a chance to unfold. You find a shallow hollow near a ridge where the wind's bite is gentler. The group gathers there, setting down bundles of meat and fur. You scrape away snow, pack dry grass beneath, and light a quick fire. Its warmth is modest, a fragile flicker against the vast blue day. No one speaks much. The language of exhaustion is universal: low grunts, half smiles, the quiet clatter of tools. One person checks a spear point, another massages frostbitten fingers. The smoke rises lazily, thin and silver, twisting into the pale sky. Experts continue to discuss how these nomads coordinated their rest cycles. Some argue that they rotated sleep within the group, a few staying awake to watch for predators while others drifted off. Others suggest communal naps timed with animal movements. When the reindeer lay down, so did the hunters. It's a rhythm so practical it feels poetic. Rest and rise as the world does. You lie back for a moment, eyes closed. Beneath you, the earth hums faintly, a vibration carried through frozen soil. The sound could be wind or distant hooves, it's impossible to tell. Either way, it's a lullaby of motion. You could almost drift off right here, under the weight of the sky. A peculiar clue from some burial sites shows the fatigue of this lifestyle etched into bone. The joints of Ice Age travelers display signs of strain and cold stress. And yet, their teeth, oddly enough, bear polish patterns suggesting shared meals and occasional indulgence. Cooked fat, roasted marrow. Even in exhaustion, they found pleasure. You imagine them dozing beside the fire after a hunt, bellies full, hands still greasy from the feast. For a few heartbeats, they felt rich. You glance up. Clouds gather to the north, thick and grey, another storm coming. You know what that means. Short sleep, long march. You can already feel the pressure in the air, that peculiar stillness before snow falls. You begin to pack the furs tighter, your movements automatic. Most scientists agree that Ice Age humans carried their bedding as bundles of layered hide and grass, rolled into cylinders strapped across the shoulders. Light enough to move, thick enough to matter. Each carried warmth like a snail carries its shell. You can picture the line of travelers, small figures against an ocean of ice, each bearing their own fragile fragment of home. As you walk again, snow begins to fall, first as soft powder, then heavier flakes that sting your cheeks. You pull your hood lower, breath rasping against the fur lining. The fire you left behind disappears, swallowed by the white. Around you, the world narrows to sound. Crunch, breath, wind, repeat. You march until twilight bleeds into indigo. The group stops in the lee of a massive boulder, half buried in snow. Someone clears space. Someone else drops the first bundle of grass. Within minutes, a small hollow appears, a pocket of survival, improvised but familiar. The fire flares again, reluctant but obedient. You sit close, too tired to speak. The light dances across faces lined, scarred, patient. You recognize something in those faces, a weariness older than memory, and a stubbornness that might outlast the cold itself. You pull your furs tight, lay your head on your rolled bundle, and let the sound of wind lull you toward half sleep. Your dreams come in fragments, the shimmer of snow, the pulse of fire, the muffled steps of reindeer. Sleep, in this world, is never full or deep. It's a pause, a truce between body and cold. You learn to take it where you can, how you can. Sometimes under mammoth bones, sometimes in the hollow of a drift. And somehow, that's enough. As you drift, you realize something profound. Humanity's first bedtime story wasn't told in words, it was whispered by the land itself. Every gust, every crack of ice, every sigh of snow said the same thing. Rest when you can, move when you must. You obey. You close your eyes not out of peace, but out of trust in tomorrow's dawn. Night again. The horizon fades to charcoal as the last shimmer of daylight slips away. Above, the sky unravels into ribbons of pale green and violet, the aurora stretching across the vault of heaven like a giant's breath frozen mid-motion. You stare up from your nest of hides, half mesmerized, half uneasy. The air hums faintly, a vibration that seems to come not from the wind but from the light itself. You close your eyes and let the glow wash over you. Beneath your lids it pulses softly, like the fire you left behind earlier. Sleep drifts near, but it's restless, full of colors and echoes. Dreams come differently here. They aren't stories, they're sensations, flashes, voices carried by the cold. Most cognitive scientists believe that our ancestors dreamed as vividly as we do, maybe more so. The human brain, even then, needed its nightly release. And when you live surrounded by death and distance, imagination fills the silence. It's likely that those first dreamers saw more than memory, they saw messages, warnings, omens, comforts. The dream was their warmth when no other fire remained. You turn on your side, watching the shadows move along the snow wall. The fire is smaller tonight, deliberately so wood is scarce. Its light flickers, soft as breath. The others are already asleep, curled beneath their furs, faces half hidden. The sound of breathing merges into a low, rhythmic hum. A curious fragment of soot found in Ice Age caves shows that people sometimes positioned fires deliberately to project shadows on the walls. Whether they knew it or not, they had invented the first cinema of light and movement. The glow would throw shapes, dancing hands, flickering flames, sometimes the outlines of hunters or beasts painted long before. It's easy to imagine those shadows coming alive in half dreams, merging with the mind's inner theatre. You watch now as the fire plays the same ancient game. Shadows leap across the tusks, merge, dissolve, reappear. For a moment, they look like running mammoths, then like people reaching toward the sky. Your brain fills in the gaps, painting its own stories. The cold outside becomes a myth. The danger turns into dream. Experts continue to discuss whether Ice Age people used dreams for guidance or comfort. Some evidence from burial goods and cave art suggests that visions carried authority. Hunters painted the animals they hoped to meet. Mothers traced outlines of hands as prayers for safety. Others think dreams were simply the byproduct of exhaustion, flickers of memory processed in the fragile warmth between waking and freezing. Either way, those nights bred imagination. You shift closer to the fire. The warmth on your cheek fades in and out as the flame wavers. For a heartbeat, you think you hear something beyond the wind, a soft rustling, too rhythmic to be random. Your hand tightens on the nearest stone tool, your body alert even as your eyelids droop. You wait. Nothing comes. Only the sigh of snow shifting against the outer wall. You exhale and laugh softly to yourself. In this world, even fear feels sleepy. Most archaeologists agree that nighttime in the Ice Age wasn't only about survival, it was about contemplation. Once the fire was steady and the bellies half full, there was little left to do but think. Those hours of quiet observation might have birthed the first questions. Why does the fire move? Where do the stars go? What happens when we close our eyes? You, too, wonder, half awake, half adrift, what the first human to dream of warmth must have felt when they woke still cold. You lie back, the fur rough against your skin. The smell of smoke clings to your hair, your hands, your breath. It's a scent you no longer notice until it fades. And when it does, you feel uneasy, too clean, too exposed. The fire's odor means life. Without it, the air smells of death. A faint hissing interrupts your thoughts. You glance at the fire sap popping in the wood. A log splits, collapsing in on itself, showering sparks that flare briefly, bright as the stars outside. You stare into them until your eyes water. Somewhere inside that light, patterns form eyes, tusks, rivers, faces. You wonder if that's how the first myths began. Fatigue and fire, smoke and imagination conspiring in the half-dark. No one's quite sure what Ice Age people believed about the lights in the sky. Some archaeologists think they feared them, interpreting the aurora as spirits or signs of coming storms. Others imagine reverence, perhaps joy. Whatever the feeling, it must have been immense. To lie beneath a sky that seemed alive, flickering in colors no fire could match. You open your eyes again. The aurora is stronger now, its light leaking through the snow walls and turning the shelter into a dim cathedral of shifting green. The glow mingles with firelight until it's impossible to tell which one breathes and which one burns. The sound is still that soft hum, a vibration that seems to travel through your ribs. Curiously enough, modern researchers have recorded faint electromagnetic sounds that accompany auroras, barely audible to the human ear, but perceptible as sensation. Perhaps your ancestors felt that same tremor and mistook it for the world speaking. You can understand why. In this silence, even your own heartbeat feels like a message. The warmth is steady now. You exhale slowly, eyelids heavy. The shadows move slower, gentler. The fire sighs as though tired too. In your half-dreaming state, you see shapes, figures walking across ice, carrying torches, laughing softly despite the cold. You know they're not really there, but you let them stay. The mind, you realize, is another kind of fire. Small, fragile, but endlessly bright. You turn your face toward the wall, the fur brushing your cheek. The snow behind it glows faintly, and beyond that glow lies eternity, endless dark, endless ice, endless sky. And yet here you are, a small creature of warmth and thought, daring to dream in a world that should have forgotten both. Sleep takes you slowly, folding you into itself like layers of hide. The aurora fades, but the pulse of light lingers behind your eyes. Somewhere deep in that darkness, the first story continues, a tale told not by words, but by warmth, rhythm, and the strange persistence of hope. The fire crackles once more, a soft reminder that even in the coldest age, something inside humanity never stopped burning. A sound wakes you long before dawn, a distant growl, low and deliberate, curling through the snow like smoke. Your eyes open to near blackness. The fire has burned down to embers, and the glow barely sketches the outlines of the tusks above you. Everyone else is still. Then, another noise, a faint crunch of footsteps just outside the wall. The hairs on your arms rise before your thoughts can catch up. You stay still, breathing shallowly. The wind presses a faint draft through the gaps in the hide wall. A shape moves outside, large, silent, circling. Wolves, maybe, or worse. The darkness beyond the fire's reach has teeth, and tonight, it's curious. Zooarchaeological evidence shows that Ice Age humans shared their world with predators more powerful than anything we can imagine today: lions bigger than any modern cat, dire wolves that hunted in packs large enough to challenge mammoths, bears that could break a ribcage with one swing. The night belonged to them. For early humans, sleeping meant trusting the thin veil of firelight to hold back the world's hunger. You slowly reach for a stone tool near your head. The surface feels cold, reassuring. Your pulse matches the rhythm of the creature's steps. It's close now, close enough that you can hear it sniffing the air, drawing in the scent of smoke, hide, and human skin. The sound is heavy, wet. Your breath freezes mid-exhale. Then silence. Long, impossible silence. Even the wind holds its breath. You count heartbeats 1, 2, 3, and then the crunch returns, fading away toward the ridge. The danger moves on. The shelter exhales with you. Someone stirs, mutters softly, and turns in their sleep. You let your body unclench, one muscle at a time. Curiously enough, fossilized footprints near some Ice Age campsites show overlapping tracks, human beside wolf. Some archaeologists believe this is evidence of cooperation, that wolves may have scavenged from human kills or even guarded camps in exchange for scraps. Others are skeptical, arguing that it's coincidence, one predator following another. Still, it's tempting to imagine an early truce forged from shared necessity. You poke the embers, feeding them dried moss and splinters of bone. The faint flame brightens, pushing shadows back just enough to breathe again. The smell of burning fat fills the air, thick and greasy but comforting in its familiarity. Light crawls up the walls, illuminating the edges of the shelter, the hung furs, the stacked tools, the faint gleam of ice on tusk. Most researchers agree that this nightly tension between safety and fear shaped human sleep itself. Our brains learn to hover between awareness and rest, to doze lightly, ears tuned to the smallest crack or whisper. Even now, thousands of generations later, that ancient vigilance lingers. You call it a nightmare, but it's really a memory of survival. You glance toward the opening. Snow drifts in faintly through a small gap, glowing silver in the half-light. Beyond, the landscape looks motionless, but you know better. Out there, somewhere, our eyes adapted to see through shadow, muscles tuned to silence. The world never truly sleeps. There's a rustle behind you, a child waking. Small, shivering, whispering a sound that might be your name. You pull them closer, wrapping your shared fur around their shoulders. The body against yours is warm and fragile, a reminder of what all this vigilance is for. The child's breathing steadies, their hand tucked against your chest. You listen to that rhythm until it lulls you too. Paleontologists have found skulls of Ice Age children, buried with carved animal figurines, lions, wolves, mammoths, objects that might have served as protectors in the night. Some scholars believe they represent a kind of empathy, a belief that to survive among predators, one must understand them, maybe even befriend them in spirit. You find that idea strangely comforting. Outside, a wolf howls. The sound is long, rising, mournful. Another answers, farther away, then another. The air trembles with their chorus. You close your eyes and listen, not in fear, but in awe. The howls echo through the valley, weaving through the wind, filling the night with a kind of wild music. You can almost feel it in your bones. Most anthropologists think these sounds shaped the first rhythms of human song. The ululation of wolves, the hum of wind, the crackle of fire together, they became the first lullabies. Maybe even tonight, some instinct in you recognizes that melody. The line between predator and partner blurs when both are lonely for warmth. You toss another stick into the fire. The flame climbs higher, painting gold across the snow walls. The shelter feels alive again. The others begin to stir, soft murmurs, a yawn, the rustle of furs. Someone coughs, someone mutters a prayer, or maybe just a curse against the cold. The day is coming. You can almost smell dawn, metallic and sharp. One fascinating site in France shows layers of wolf and human remains mixed together, suggesting close proximity, perhaps even shared space. Were they companions? Or just reluctant neighbors driven by hunger to the same warmth? The scientists can't say. But the idea of sleeping beside what once hunted you lingers like a paradox: survival through intimacy with danger. The fire pops, startling you slightly. The child beside you murmurs but doesn't wake. You stroke their hair absently, fingers catching on small knots of frost. Outside, the wind carries another distant howl, softer now, fading toward the horizon. You lie back again, the tension easing from your limbs. The cold presses at the edges of the shelter, but it feels weaker now, as if the night itself has grown tired. You stare into the fire until the shapes blur. Its colors shift amber, red, then a deep, slow blue that isn't really there. Sleep comes creeping like a cautious animal, testing your edges before curling beside you. Somewhere beyond the walls, the wolves rest too, bellies full, muzzles tucked under their tails. You wonder if they dream, if they see your firelight in their sleep, the same way you hear their songs in yours. Perhaps even enemies shared warmth in the oldest sense, through recognition. The ember's glow softens to gold. You close your eyes and drift again, not trusting the night, but accepting it. In a world of predators and prey, you've learned the quietest truth of all. Sometimes staying alive means learning to sleep in the presence of fear. And in that lesson lies the beginning of courage. Morning crawls back into the world, pale and brittle. The fire has turned to a soft mound of grey dust, faintly steaming, and your shelter smells of smoke, fur, and sleep. You push the hide aside and step into the open, where the light is too sharp, too clean. Every sound is magnified: the crunch of your footsteps, the creak of ice shifting in the valley below, the distant call of a raven. You stretch your arms and feel the cold sting your skin like needles. The night's fear has passed, replaced by the mundane ache of living. Yet, as you scan the horizon, you can't help but think about where you'll sleep next. Because out here, rest isn't routine, it's a craft. Archaeologists have unearthed impressions in ancient sediments that reveal the first true human beds. Beneath rock ledges and inside caves, they found layers of grass, reeds, and leaves carefully arranged, topped with furs. Most of these beds were replaced and renewed frequently, suggesting that comfort even in the Ice Age was deliberate. Sleep was no longer just collapse, it was preparation. You walk back into the shelter and kneel where you slept. Beneath your fur mat is a layer of dried sedge and moss. You lift a handful and crumble it between your fingers. It smells faintly sweet, almost herbal. The softness surprises you, it's resilient, springy, like primitive bedding foam. You smile. Even in this frozen age, someone cared enough to make the ground less cruel. A curious residue found on ancient bedding layers hints at another detail: traces of aromatic plants, wild thyme, mint, and certain insect, repelling herbs. Whether chosen for their scent or their usefulness, no one knows. But it's easy to imagine an Ice Age sleeper, preferring the smell of crushed green leaves to the musk of tallow and hide. You can almost feel that small act of grace, tucked between survival and sleep. Most anthropologists believe that these bedding designs also served hygiene. Moisture was the enemy, wet fur turned to ice, and cold seeped from the ground like hunger. So they built insulation in layers: grass to breathe, moss to absorb, hide to retain. It was science written in instinct, trial after trial across unending nights. You sit down again and adjust the bedding, patting it flat. Beneath you, the reeds whisper softly, making a sound almost like waves. You close your eyes, just for a moment, and imagine it's summer somewhere far away, a different age, a softer world. But when you open them again, frost clings to your eyelashes, and the illusion breaks. One excavation in South Africa uncovered what may be humanity's oldest known sleeping site, over 200,000 years old. The layers told a story. Plant bedding burned periodically to drive out pests, replaced by fresh grass. Even then, People cleaned their homes, curated their comfort, and sought the simple dignity of good rest. Sleep wasn't laziness, it was strategy. You move to the fire pit, rekindle the flame, and spread your hands above it. The warmth seeps into your bones. The others stir around you, stretching, yawning, brushing frost from their faces. Someone laughs, low and tired, and tosses you a piece of dried meat. It tastes of smoke and salt, tough but sustaining. You chew slowly, staring at the orange shimmer that begins to fill the sky. Experts continue to discuss how such small domestic gestures, making beds, tidying hearths, reflect the rise of human self-awareness. To make a place for sleep is to admit permanence, even if only for one night. It's a defiance of chaos, a statement, here for now we belong. You think about that as you gather more grass from outside. The stalks are brittle, covered in frost, but they'll soften near the fire. You weave them absent-mindedly, layering them into a tighter mat. The repetitive motion soothes you, much like the way waves soothe a shoreline. Maybe this is why your ancestors did it, not just for comfort, but for calm. A peculiar pattern noted in excavation sites suggests that some beds were built large enough for multiple people, families perhaps, or hunting partners. They slept close, not only for warmth but for familiarity. You imagine the quiet talk before sleep, the laughter that somehow survived the cold, the whispered plans for tomorrow's hunt. It's strange how such tenderness persisted under the weight of ice. You spread your new mat near the hearth and lie back, testing it. The reeds creak softly beneath you, and the warmth from the fire brushes your cheek. The sensation is so perfect, so precisely balanced between rough and gentle that you almost laugh. Civilization began here, you think. Not with walls or tools, but with this, the human decision to make the ground kinder. No one's quite sure how early people chose their sleeping spots, but it seems they valued not just warmth but sound. Sheltered corners where wind couldn't whistle, where the earth's heartbeat was soft and steady. You listen now, and the world hums faintly beneath you. The rhythm feels ancient, familiar, a lullaby built into the soil itself. As the sun rises higher, light spills through the gaps in the tusks, scattering in thin golden stripes. You trace them with your finger, imagining the first dawns that touched such spaces, how the light must have felt like forgiveness after endless dark. Someone near you chuckles softly in their sleep, rolling over, pulling fur tighter. Even that small sound carries comfort. Curiously enough, microscopic studies of old bedding have shown traces of human hair, evidence that these mats weren't just for sleep, but for gathering, grooming, resting. The Ice Age home was both workshop and bedroom, a circle of warmth that blurred all boundaries. To rest was to live, to repair both body and mind. You close your eyes again just to listen. Crackling fire, sigh of breath, whisper of reeds, the simplest orchestra in human history, repeating every night for millennia. You imagine that somewhere, deep in your DNA, the sound is still playing. The Ice Age wasn't kind, but it taught your species to dream even in discomfort, to build small islands of gentleness in oceans of frost. You turn over, pressing your cheek into the grass. It's scratchy, imperfect, real. You breathe in the scent of smoke and life and feel, just for a heartbeat, something close to peace. You think, this is what it means to be human, to soften the ground beneath your suffering, to make room for sleep, even when the night would rather see you gone. Evening again. The light fades slowly across the plains, sliding from white to silver to a dim, bruised blue. The air feels different tonight, less cruel, as though the world is taking a breath before plunging into deeper cold. You sit outside your shelter, watching the sun hover low, caught between setting and surrendering. The wind carries a faint hum, a rhythm you've started to understand, the steady heartbeat of seasons changing. Most climate scientists agree that the Ice Age wasn't a constant freeze, but a shifting rhythm of warmth and cold, light and shadow. Winters could stretch for months, even years, and summers brief. Tender things brought enough melt to wake the rivers and coax fragile green shoots from the frost. Humans adapted their sleep to that rhythm. They learned the art of hibernation, not in the strict sense, but in spirit, a slowing of body and time. You remember nights so long that the sun seemed a rumor. Sleep during those winters came in heavy waves. People would drift in and out of drowsiness, curling deeper under furs, moving only to feed the fire or chew at stored meat. Archaeological evidence of bone growth and metabolic changes suggests that Ice Age humans consumed fat and marrow through the dark months to sustain energy while resting more than they worked. Their bodies slowed down, conserving what little heat the world allowed. You stretch your hands toward the fire, feeling its warmth seep into your palms. The smoke drifts upward, vanishing into the slow swirl of snowflakes. Behind you, others are already lying down, cocooned in furs, breathing softly. There's a gentleness to these early hours of night, a shared silence that feels almost sacred. Curiously enough, traces of charcoal and lamp soot found on cave ceilings hint that people once painted or repaired their art during the long, dark months. Perhaps they couldn't sleep, or perhaps sleep and wake blurred together until they became the same thing. You can picture it. A figure rising in the middle of the night, stirring embers to life, grinding pigment from stone, tracing a mammoth's curve across the wall while others dreamed behind them. Experts continue to debate whether Ice Age people entered a kind of seasonal dormancy, a semi-hibernation like bears or hedgehogs. Some anthropologists believe lower sunlight, minimal food, and bone evidence of slowed metabolism suggest it's possible. Others argue it's unlikely. Human bodies weren't made for full hibernation. Whatever the truth, something in the darkness changed the rhythm of their minds. They slept longer, dreamed deeper, lived slower. You look toward the eastern horizon. The sky there glows faintly green, the aurora again, shy tonight. The light feels like a conversation between earth and air. You pull your fur tighter and feel your heartbeat slowing with the temperature. There's a strange peace in the thought that the entire planet once moved to this rhythm. A long inhale of cold, a long exhale of melt, over and over, for thousands of years. Inside the shelter, the fire's glow paints everyone in soft orange. Their faces, half hidden beneath pelts, look younger, gentler, unburdened for a few hours. You step quietly back in, careful not to disturb the calm. The warmth envelops you, heavy and fragrant smoke, hide, and the faint sweetness of thawing grass beneath the bedding. You settle near the entrance, where the air is cool but not cruel. Your body begins to adjust automatically, as if some ancient instinct knows the order of operations. Relax the hands, lower the shoulders, breathe through the nose. These people didn't have clocks, but they lived in perfect synchrony with the light. A fascinating discovery in prehistoric bones shows evidence of rhythmic growth spurts and pauses, correlating with seasonal changes in daylight. It suggests that humans quite literally slept differently depending on the time of year. Winter sleep was heavier, dreamier. Summer sleep was restless and short, interrupted by the buzz of insects and the constant glow of twilight. You lie down, folding your arms beneath your head. The fire whispers, and outside the snow murmurs back. The air between them is a kind of conversation, the living warmth and the endless cold, negotiating peace. You think about what this rhythm means. To survive in such a place, people had to learn to yield to it. They didn't fight the long nights. They flowed with them, turning stillness into strength. There's something profoundly modern about that lesson, an ancient wisdom most of us have forgotten, that rest is not weakness, but endurance wearing a softer face. Someone stirs beside you, mumbling in sleep. You catch only fragments, sounds that aren't quite words but hold emotion nonetheless. Maybe they dream of summer, of rivers unfrozen, of sunlight that lasts more than a few hours. You close your eyes and see it too. Green valleys, the hum of bees, the laughter of a world thawed back to color. No one's certain how much dreaming changed across the seasons, but neurologists studying sleep cycles in extreme environments, polar research stations, for example, note that prolonged darkness deepens dream activity. If that was true for your ancestors, then the Ice Age nights were filled with visions vivid enough to feel real. Perhaps the first myths were born from such dreams, the mind's way of creating light when the sun refused to return. You pull your fur closer. The warmth and the drowsiness arrive together, spreading slowly from your chest outward. The noise of the storm has faded, leaving only the heartbeat of fire. Time stretches. In the modern world, you'd call this moment falling asleep. But here, in this endless twilight, it's something gentler, a drift between states, a slow surrender to the rhythm of the planet. You don't fall, you float. Outside, frost crawls across the snow, forming delicate filigree patterns that shimmer like silver veins. Inside, the fire's light dims and brightens, matching your breath. You don't count hours, you count warmth. You don't dream of the past or the future, only of motionless peace. As your mind fades toward that heavy, ancient sleep, one thought lingers. Perhaps the Ice Age didn't just teach humans how to survive the cold, it taught them how to rest in it. And as you finally drift off, you feel what they must have felt, the deep, wordless satisfaction of surrendering to the season, of knowing that sometimes survival means slowing down enough to listen to the silence of winter, the silence that holds the world still so life can gather its strength again. When you wake, the light in the cave is the color of honey diluted with smoke. The fire has gone quiet again, burned down to a gentle shimmer. Around you, the air vibrates with small noises, the shifting of furs, the crack of cooling stones, the sighs of people stretching their stiff limbs. You can tell morning has come not by the sun, it barely rises anymore, but by the rhythm of the camp's heartbeat. A soft murmur passes through the group as everyone stirs. Someone coughs. Someone else chuckles low, rubbing frost from their beard. The sound feels familiar, even domestic. You realize this too is part of human survival. The rhythm of shared waking, of voices reminding each other that you're not alone in the frozen dark. Archaeological layers from Ice Age campsites show clear evidence of these communal spaces. Fire pits surrounded by organized zones for sleeping, tool-making, and food preparation. People didn't scatter randomly across the ground. They clustered close, their arrangement deliberate and social. Where the ashes gathered thickest, life pulsed strongest. You glance around the circle of faces glowing in the morning firelight. Some smile faintly, others still lost between sleep and waking. A child laughs at a spark that jumps toward them, and the sound breaks the cold silence in a way that feels almost holy. It's strange after so many nights of fear and wind, warmth now has a voice. Most social anthropologists agree that communal sleeping was humanity's first trust exercise. It required faith that your neighbor wouldn't harm you, that your companions would wake if danger came, that you could rest without keeping one eye open. This nightly ritual wove invisible bonds of belonging, a fabric far stronger than hide or sinew. You slept side by side, heartbeats overlapping, until safety itself became a shared rhythm. Curiously enough, microscopic traces of soot found on cave ceilings suggest that these living spaces were continuously occupied for months, maybe even seasons. People shared not just fire but air smoke-filled, close, heavy with the scent of life. It wasn't pleasant, but it was intimate. They breathed the same warmth, and that breath stitched them together more effectively than any story could. You stretch, feeling the stiffness in your back, and glance toward the edge of the fire pit where an older man sits. His hands tremble slightly as he feeds a new branch into the flames. He notices your gaze and grins a thin, gap-toothed smile that says, wordlessly, "We made it through another one." You nod back, because words would break the quiet spell that morning brings. Most experts believe Ice Age camps divided their duties as night fell and day returned. When the hunters slept, others, often elders, or those too young to fight, watched the fire, tended the tools, mended hides. This rotation wasn't just necessity, it was community in motion. Survival wasn't an individual act, it was choreography. The child from earlier crawls into your lap, their skin warm beneath layers of fur. They yawn, wide and unashamed, and you feel their heartbeat against your chest. You're reminded suddenly of how fragile life is here and how miraculous it is that anyone sleeps at all. You remember something a researcher once said: humans didn't invent society, they slept their way into it. The long nights of shared rest created empathy long before language could name it. There's truth in that. The rhythm of breathing together, of fire crackling and limbs touching in trust, turned isolation into kinship. A peculiar clue from some French cave floors supports this: multiple depressions in the same soil, pressed side by side, some overlapping slightly. The marks suggest people shifting in sleep, adjusting to one another's warmth. Those imprints, frozen for tens of millennia, are the oldest photograph of comfort we possess. You glance toward the fire again. The wood snaps, sending up a thin thread of smoke that coils toward the low ceiling. The light catches in it, creating soft halos around every moving figure. Someone sharpens a blade. Someone else hums under their breath a tune without melody, only rhythm. It's not music, not yet, but it carries familiarity. Anthropologists still discuss whether these murmured sounds evolved into the first lullabies or chants. Some argue that they were a way to mark time or soothe fear. Others suggest they were expressions of gratitude, small songs to keep the night kind. Whatever their purpose, they were proof that humanity found beauty even when surrounded by hunger and frost. You shift the child from your lap and stand, stretching your legs. The floor beneath your feet is layered with ash, fur, and crushed reeds, a patchwork of 1,000 small survivals. You step carefully around the fire, noting how the warmth fades inch by inch. That gradient warmth to cold is the same gradient between life and death, and every Ice Age human learned it by feel. You move to the cave's entrance, brushing aside the hide curtain. Outside, the air bites at your skin immediately. The valley below lies half drowned in fog. You can't see far, but you can hear the crunch of distant footsteps, the soft murmur of others waking across the camp. This network of caves, fires, and sleeping circles is more than survival, it's civilization in embryo. The cooperation born here will echo across every generation to come, shaping the way humans build villages, cities, nations, all from the simple truth discovered under ice. That warmth multiplies when shared. You return inside. Someone hands you a piece of roasted fat, still sizzling faintly from the fire. You take a bite, feeling the warmth spread through your chest. The others begin their routines, some preparing tools, some wrapping hides, some curling back under furs for a few minutes of stolen rest before the next march. The hum of daily life fills the space like a soft drum beat. You sit quietly and watch it, all the tiny gestures of survival woven together into a pattern of peace. It's fleeting, fragile, and perfect. For a few moments the cold feels far away. No one's quite sure what they dreamed about during those long communal nights. But perhaps it was this: a fire that never went out, a warmth that belonged to everyone, a silence filled not with fear but with breathing. You close your eyes and imagine that dream spreading from person to person, carried through centuries until it reaches you, here, in your own bed under your own roof. You are still part of that circle. The fire pops softly. The child giggles. The wind outside sighs through the cracks. For the first time in days, you feel not like a survivor, but like a participant in something ancient and unbroken. The shared act of rest, repeated 1,000 generations deep. The night returns quietly, slipping over the horizon like a great dark animal. Inside the cave, the last embers flicker low, glowing like sleeping eyes. The group settles into their evening routine, some stretch furs, others rearrange stones around the hearth. A few stand watch near the mouth of the shelter, listening. You take a place by the fire, the warmth licking at your palms, your thoughts heavy with the day's exhaustion. In every Ice Age community, someone always stayed awake. The guardians of the fire, they were the sentinels of warmth, the keepers of light when all else surrendered to darkness. Most researchers agree that this watchful role rotated, shared among adults and elders alike. To keep the flame alive was not just duty, it was an act of love, a quiet promise to everyone sleeping under the same fragile roof. You watch now as the oldest man in your group, his hair white as ash, leans forward to tend the fire. His hands are steady, though the joints swell with age. He uses a long stick to stir the coals, coaxing the glow back to life, then adds a handful of moss for smoke, another of dry wood for flame. The rhythm of his movements is slow, deliberate. He doesn't look at the fire so much as listen to it. Curiously enough, archaeologists studying soot layers in prehistoric caves noticed an intriguing pattern: periodic bursts of ash density at regular intervals, suggesting fires were refreshed every few hours, even during the deepest nights. Someone was always awake, feeding the light. Someone always kept the cold from reclaiming what had been won. You glance toward the sleepers, bundled tight, faces barely visible under their furs. Their breathing fills the room like waves, soft and even. One child kicks in their sleep, muttering a sound that might be laughter. The old man glances over and smiles faintly, shaking his head. You can tell this ritual has played out countless times before him, and it will play out countless times after. Most anthropologists believe that these watchful nights gave birth to humanity's first sense of guardianship, the idea that protection could be shared. In the dark, with the wolves howling and the cold whispering through the cracks, the firekeeper became something sacred. They were the hinge on which rest could turn. You could close your eyes because someone else refused to. You shift closer, drawn by the soft, hypnotic sound of crackling wood. The old man notices and gestures for you to sit beside him. His hands are blackened with soot, his face lined with years of wind and smoke, but his eyes hold the calm of someone who has stared down too many winters to be afraid of this one. He hands you a branch. Your turn, his gesture says, though no words are exchanged. You take it, feed it gently into the flame. It catches quickly, brightening the chamber. The light dances over the tusks above, gliding along the curved surfaces until they gleam like molten gold. The sight fills you with quiet awe. A peculiar discovery from an Ice Age settlement in Russia revealed rings of charred stone encircling hearths, as if to contain embers that burned longer than the night itself. Some scholars believe these were communal fires tended by multiple hands, each ring marking a shift of watch. To share the flame was to share existence. The old man nods once, satisfied, and settles back against the wall. His eyelids droop but never fully close. You realize now why people trusted him with this duty, because he knows how to listen. The fire speaks to him in crackles, sighs, small collapses. He adjusts it by instinct, not thought. You wonder how many times he's done this, how many nights of smoke and silence he has carried, so others could dream. Experts still argue about whether Ice Age people truly worshipped fire or simply revered it. Some say ritual gestures, ashes spread carefully. Fires built in precise circles suggested spiritual significance. Others think it was just habit refined by necessity. But watching the old man, you understand that reverence doesn't need names or gods. Sometimes, gratitude is enough. The smoke swirls upward, curling along the roof like slow, thoughtful writing. The scent is heavy, resinous, but soothing. Outside, the wind claws faintly at the entrance, muffled by hides. The fire flares once, then steadies as if drawing a deep breath. The others sleep on. The cave glows in orange rhythm, each pulse of light brushing across faces, stone and bone. You can almost feel time slowing heartbeat, breath, flame, all synchronized in one long inhale of existence. There's a moment when you think about modern nights, how you close a switch instead of stoking a flame, how light now hums from walls instead of hearts. The ancient watchers must feel distant, but some part of you recognizes them still. Every lamp on a bedside table, every parent who stays awake until their child sleeps, it's all an echo of this same instinct. A log shifts, collapsing in on itself with a sigh. You reach out with the stick and adjust it, the action fluid, automatic. For a fleeting instant, you imagine you're the only living thing left in the world, the keeper of the last fire. It's not loneliness you feel, though. It's purpose. In the stillness, your mind wanders. You picture the hunters on the plains, their fires visible like distant stars. Each one a small defiance in the frozen dark, each one guarded by someone like you. Together, they form a constellation not of light, but of endurance. The old man finally speaks, voice hoarse and soft as the ashes. A single word, maybe your name, maybe something older. He gestures toward the coals as if to say, "Watch." Then he lies back and closes his eyes. The responsibility passes to you, warm and quiet as the fire itself. Hours blur. You feed the flame. You listen to the wind test the hides. You watch the embers pulse red, then gold, then white. The fire talks in tiny sighs, and you answer by keeping it alive. When dawn comes, it arrives gently, washing the snow outside in faint pink light. You blink, dazed, and realize the others are stirring. The child yawns, the old man nods to you once, and the group begins to rise. You have guarded their warmth through the night, and that simple act feels like ceremony. The fire's glow fades in the sunlight, but its presence lingers on your skin, in your lungs, behind your eyes. You've joined an unbroken line of watchers stretching back to the beginning of time. The guardians of warmth, the first storytellers, the ones who never let the dark have the last word. The day unfolds in a silence that feels stretched thin. The sky is so bright it hurts to look at, and the cold has turned crystalline. Every breath seems to glitter as it leaves your mouth. You can smell snow before you see it, the sharp, metallic scent carried on the wind. The hunters are late returning, and the camp's mood grows uneasy. You sit by the fire, feeding it with the last scraps of dry wood. The warmth barely reaches your hands now, the flames too small to push back the cold. Someone mutters about venturing out to look for the hunting party, but no one moves. You all know that in weather like this, movement can be death disguised as courage. Archaeological records hint at what happens when the fire fails. Beneath ancient layers of ash, researchers have found dark patches, burned bedding, scattered bones, tools abandoned mid-use. In some cases, the evidence is subtle. A single hearth extinguished too early, animal fat stored but never used. It's the archaeological signature of tragedy, frozen in place. As the day drags toward dusk, wind begins to rise, a moaning, sweeping voice that fills the cave mouth and turns the air to knives. You look toward the entrance, where the hides whip like torn sails. Beyond them, snow falls sideways, thick and relentless. Somewhere in that white blur, the hunters are fighting their way back. Or they aren't. No one knows. A child begins to cry, softly at first, then louder. The sound cuts through the storm like an arrow. You move to comfort them, pulling them close under your fur. Their skin is cold, their breath shallow. You whisper nonsense, words don't matter, tone does. The child quiets, trembling against you. Around you, the others sit in near silence, faces drawn tight with worry. Then the fire flickers. The draft catches it, and for a heartbeat, the flame bends sideways. You see it shrinking, starved for fuel. You reach for the woodpile, but it's almost gone, only a few splinters left. The panic arrives slowly, quietly, like frost creeping into bone. One of the women stands abruptly, grabs a bone club, and stalks to the back of the cave. She breaks off a piece of dried hide, tosses it into the fire. The smell of burning leather fills the air, sour, thick, but warm. The flames leap higher, grateful for anything. Everyone exhales at once. You don't have words for hope, but this is what it feels like. Most researchers agree that these moments when fires faltered or died defined the rhythm of Ice Age survival. Some groups learned to ration fuel, burning bones, fat, even dried dung. Others didn't. The difference between memory and extinction was often measured in embers. The night falls fully now. The storm rages outside, a constant roar that shakes snow loose from the ceiling. The fire dances wildly, its light trembling across the tusks. You hear a distant shout, maybe the hunters, maybe the wind. Everyone freezes. Another shout follows, closer this time. Then movement at the entrance. Figures stagger in, covered in frost. The hunters. They collapse near the fire, panting, faces rimed with ice. You help pull furs from their shoulders, your fingers numb and clumsy. One of them, young, half-frozen, presses something into your hand, a lump of fat wrapped in hide. You unwrap it, heart racing. Fuel, the gift of survival. A peculiar finding from some Ice Age sites shows piles of burned marrow bones stacked near hearths. Researchers once thought they were food waste until they realized the bones had been used as fuel. When split and dried, bone burns slow and steady, poor flame, but long heat. It's the science of desperation, perfected by instinct. You toss a piece of fat into the fire. It flares bright and hot, a golden roar that fills the cave with new light. The warmth surges, flooding the space. People laugh, breathless with relief. The sound feels foreign, almost defiant. Even the child stirs and smiles weakly, their small face bathed in orange glow. Experts still debate whether fire failures led to ritual or superstition, whether people prayed to flames or simply pleaded with physics. Some evidence suggests offerings, bits of meat, carved beads, even drops of blood pressed into ash. Whether those were gestures of faith or gratitude, no one can say. You understand both now. You'd promise anything for the light to stay. The storm outside screams louder, but inside, the world shrinks to the pulse of fire. The heat returns to your fingers, your face. You can feel it seeping into the fur, into the air itself. The hunters begin to speak short, broken words about ice cracks, lost tools, a mammoth trail vanishing in snow, but no one truly listens. You're all just grateful to be alive. You think of other nights, other fires that didn't make it, the evidence buried deep beneath snowdrifts, the half-frozen shelters abandoned midwinter. Perhaps somewhere, even now, another camp's fire has gone out. You send a silent thought to them, not quite a prayer, more like a wish carried by smoke. Let someone find warmth before it's too late. Curiously enough, one set of footprints, preserved in permafrost, tells a strange story. A single figure, barefoot, walking into a snowfield and never returning. Scholars can't agree on why. Some say it was ritual, others madness. Maybe it was just exhaustion, the moment a mind gives up when warmth becomes impossible. You think of that when you look at your fire now. How thin the line is, how easily it can break. The old man, the guardian from nights before, stirs in his sleep and mumbles something, a word half swallowed by the sound of burning. His hand twitches, reaching toward the flames even in dreams. You realize that after a lifetime of tending them, his body has learned to protect light even while unconscious. The instinct is older than reason. Outside, the storm begins to fade, its roar dimming to a steady sigh. The wind slows, the snow grows heavy and still. Inside, the fire crackles strong, steady again. The fear drains from the group like melted ice. You exhale. Sleep creeps in, hesitant at first. You lie back against your bedding, the warmth a thin miracle pressing against the dark. The hunters breathe softly. The child curls into your side, and the old man's hand rests palm up toward the flame. Before you close your eyes, you look once more at the fire. It burns evenly now, orange at the base, gold at the heart, a tiny thread of blue at its edge. You think of every night before this one, every generation that faced this same flickering miracle and made it last. You whisper softly, "Stay." And the fire answers not in words, but in light. When the storm finally dies, the world outside is unrecognizable. The snow has sculpted new ridges and erased all tracks, as if the land decided to begin again. The cold lingers, but the wind has lost its voice. You step outside into the quiet, an immense frozen hush that swallows every sound. The horizon glows faintly under a bruised sky. The world looks clean, empty, and ancient. Behind you, the fire still burns. Its light flickers through the mammoth hide entrance, a pulse of gold in the pale gloom. Inside, the others are waking. One hums softly, another stirs the embers, another stretches like a cat before curling back into warmth. But tonight feels different. There's a restlessness in the air, the same kind that always comes after fear. Humans, it seems, never survive without wanting to understand. You glance toward the far wall of the cave. The soot there is layered thick, but beneath it, faint marks emerge, lines scratched with bone tools, faint as breath. Someone has drawn shapes, curves, spirals, the rough outline of an animal, a mammoth maybe, or a dream of one. Archaeologists have found such carvings and paintings deep within Ice Age shelters, their pigments made from iron oxide, charcoal, and animal fat. They weren't random. These markings appear most often near hearths, places of sleep and firelight. It's likely that they were born in the quiet hours of night, when flames flickered and imagination blurred the walls into canvases. Some researchers believe that these drawings were rituals of gratitude, thank yous to the animals that fed them, prayers painted in red and black. Others think they were memory maps, records of hunts or migrations. But there's another theory, quieter, more human, that these images came from dreams, from the strange theatre of the mind that flickers between exhaustion and hope. You move closer, tracing one faint line with your finger. The surface feels cold, rough with time. The groove is shallow but deliberate, a decision pressed into stone. The shape resembles a handprint someone's palm, open and small, surrounded by smudged ochre. You imagine that moment, a figure crouched by the fire, dipping their hand in pigment, pressing it to the wall to say, "I am here." Most anthropologists agree that such art coincided with a shift in consciousness, a growing curiosity about life beyond mere survival. The Ice Age was merciless, but it also birthed reflection. Perhaps after so many nights huddled against the dark, humans began to wonder not only how to live, but why. The cave walls became mirrors for that question. A curious detail emerges in many of these sites. The smoke stains above the art. The ceilings are blackened, not by carelessness, but by repetition. Fires burned beneath the same drawings again and again. People must have returned to these spots, sitting beneath the painted shapes while the firelight made them move. The animals on the walls flickered as the flames danced, and for a moment, art and life merged. You sit down beside your own fire and watch the shadows play across the walls. The tusks, the soot, the lines of ochre all shift as the flames move, creating illusion from chaos. The mammoth seems to walk, the handprint seems to wave. For a moment, you understand how belief begins not with gods or rules, but with light and imagination meeting in the dark. Experts continue to discuss whether these paintings were done in silence or accompanied by chant, by sound, meant to echo like breath inside stone. Some caves, like those in France and Spain, have natural acoustics that make a whisper carry like thunder. You imagine standing in that vast chamber, your voice multiplying until it feels divine. Maybe that's why they painted there, to speak to the stone and hear the stone answer. The smell of the fire thickens. Someone behind you hums again, softly, the same low note they use when calming the children to sleep. The sound mingles with the crackle of flame and the faint drip of melting frost. The rhythm is hypnotic. You close your eyes and see the flickering shapes again, not painted this time, but moving in your mind. Animals, stars, faces. You understand why people once believed dreams were messages. They felt too vivid to be yours alone. Curiously enough, residue analysis from ochre lamps shows traces of animal fat and marrow mixed with pigment, suggesting that light and color were one and the same. Imagine painting by that glow, the lamp sputtering, shadows growing long, smoke curling upward in delicate spirals. Each motion of the hand a dialogue between human and element. It wasn't just art. It was survival song sung in color. You open your eyes and look again at the wall. The handprint catches your attention most of all. Its fingers splay wide, the palm pressed deep enough that texture still clings to it after all these millennia. Whoever left it didn't mean to decorate, they meant to exist. In a world where death was everywhere, leaving a mark was a rebellion. No one's entirely certain what these symbols meant. Some scholars propose they were territorial signs claiming ownership. Others see them as signatures of identity, each hand a name, each curve a thought. But you sense something simpler, the universal human desire to be remembered. The fire crackles louder now, and the old man from before stirs beside you. He sees what you're looking at and nods knowingly. Then he picks up a bit of charcoal and gestures toward the wall. You hesitate, but he insists. You crawl closer, heart pounding like a child caught doing something sacred. You press your hand against the cold stone. The soot smears easily, warm against your palm. When you pull it away, your outline remains. You stare at it for a long time. The print looks fragile, almost translucent in the firelight, but it's there. You've joined the lineage of those who left something behind. Not a tool, not a hunt, but a whisper of presence. Experts call this impulse symbolic behavior. You call it proof of yearning, the same force that drives you now to light candles, to write names, to tell stories. The Ice Age mind was not primitive. It was poetic. It dreamed in pigment, sang in fire, and spoke in silence. The fire flickers again, and for a heartbeat, your handprint seems to move. You lean back, breath slow, eyes heavy. The wall glows softly, a constellation of human will. Outside, the snow glitters under the returning moon. The world is still, but inside, the air hums with memory. Before you drift to sleep, you look at your mark once more. You think about the thousands of hands that came before yours, all pressed into stone for the same reason, to say, "We lived." And somewhere in the quiet, the stone seems to echo back, "You still do." By the time the next dusk comes, the fire is burning low again, its light soft and amber. The child beside you sleeps curled in a nest of fur, their small hand resting near the embers as if they're guarding it. You smile faintly and tuck the hide closer around their shoulders. In this age, warmth isn't comfort, it's inheritance. The young learn it before they can speak, that survival begins with heat and ends without it. You shift your gaze to the far side of the shelter. There, a woman sits cross-legged, humming while rubbing two pieces of hide together to soften them. Beside her, another prepares a tiny bundle dry moss, bits of grass, shreds of fur forming what looks like a small cushion. You realize what it is, a bed for a child. Archaeologists have found evidence of such care. In several Ice Age sites, infant remains were discovered nestled in pits lined with fur, moss, and feathers. These weren't graves, they were cradles, insulated and soft. It seems that even amid endless winter, people learned tenderness. The smallest bodies were treated as treasures of warmth, cocooned against the world's indifference. You crawl closer, drawn by curiosity. The woman looks up and smiles, a brief, tired curve of her lips. She holds out the bundle for you to feel. It's astonishingly light, yet dense with layers, each one carefully chosen. Moss for moisture, fur for heat, grass for breath. When you press your palm to it, it radiates faint warmth from the fire. You hand it back with quiet awe. Most anthropologists agree that Ice Age groups had a strong sense of childcare built on community rather than bloodline. Infants belonged to everyone. When one cried, it wasn't just the mother who responded, but whoever was closest to warmth. The cold made selfishness impossible. Curiously enough, residues of animal milk and powdered bone have been found on ancient tools shaped like spoons or spouts. These may have been the first feeding implements, crafted to nourish children when mothers were weak or absent. You picture a night like this one, a baby stirring, a hand reaching out through smoke and darkness to feed them by the fire's dim glow. Even without words, that act speaks a language as old as time. You live, therefore we live. The woman finishes the small bed and places it near the fire pit. The child she made it for whimpers, restless, and she hums low a sound that rises and falls like wind against snow. The melody is almost nothing, just a vibration, but it fills the space with warmth that no flame could match. The others listen quietly. One begins to hum too, then another. Soon the shelter becomes a soft chorus of half voices, the music of survival. Experts studying bone flutes and perforated shells believe that the roots of music stretch back to these moments. The oldest known instrument, a vulture bone flute from over 40,000 years ago, was likely used for lullabies or simple songs to calm the young. It's humbling to imagine that art's first purpose was comfort, not celebration, not ceremony, but sleep. You sit back, letting the hum wash over you. The fire flickers gently, and the child's breathing steadies. You realize that what you're hearing isn't performance, it's cooperation. Each tone fits into the next, instinctively. No one leads, no one follows. The sound builds, then fades, like the flame's pulse. Some researchers suggest that this kind of rhythm, coordinated but improvised, helped early humans develop empathy. To match another's sound is to feel their feeling. The Ice Age might have been humanity's coldest trial, but it was also its warmest creation, the invention of togetherness. A peculiar find in a cave near the Czech Republic revealed a small pile of polished bones beside child-sized handprints on the wall. Were they toys? Charms? Tokens of affection? No one knows. But it's easy to picture a parent handing one to a frightened child at night, saying, "This will keep you safe." A ritual born from love disguised as superstition. You glance back toward the sleeping child. The woman strokes their hair with slow, deliberate motions, her eyes half closed. Her fingers are cracked and scarred, but her touch is gentle. You've seen her fight through blizzards, tear meat from frozen carcasses, climb cliffs slick with ice, and yet here, in this dim glow, she's softer than the moss she just laid down. No one's entirely sure how Ice Age people measured time, but evidence of wear on teeth and bones suggests they lived by life stages: childhood, hunter, elder. But tonight, all stages seem to blur. Around the fire, you see the full spectrum of human care: the old man tending coals, the young mother singing, the child dreaming. It's the first civilization reduced to its essence: warmth, food, rest, affection. The fire pops suddenly, throwing sparks across the hides. A few flare briefly before fading. The child stirs, eyes fluttering open. You reach over and gently brush their forehead. "Sleep," you whisper, though the word means nothing here. It's only tone and comfort. They sigh and curl closer to their bedding. Experts continue to discuss whether Ice Age humans conceptualized family the way we do now. Some think bloodlines mattered little. Bonds formed through survival instead. Others argue that kinship still shaped their world. But watching this, you sense that love was not about lineage, it was about warmth. Whoever kept you alive was your family. Outside, the wind returns, brushing snow against the walls. It's gentle this time, almost a lullaby of its own. The group hums softer now, their voices fading into the rhythmic hiss of the fire. You lean back, eyes half closed, the song vibrating faintly in your chest. In this moment, the entire Ice Age feels small, no longer vast and merciless, but intimate, tender, human. You understand that even here, surrounded by predators and frost, there were mothers who sang, fathers who watched, children who dreamed. And as you drift toward sleep again, you realize that warmth is not only heat, it's memory. The comfort of hands that held you once, of voices that promised morning would come. The child's breathing deepens. The fire hums softly. You close your eyes, the lullaby still echoing in your bones. For the first time in this frozen world, you feel what they must have felt. Not fear, not endurance, but love pure and wordless, the oldest warmth of all. The fire has burned low again. Nothing left but a slow pulse of orange buried in grey. You wake to stillness, a silence so heavy It feels like sound waiting to be born. The air tastes of ash and hide, familiar, almost metallic. Around you, the others are asleep, motionless forms under heaps of fur. You can hear only their breathing, steady, fragile, proof of life. You move carefully, not wanting to wake anyone, and reach for your pack. Inside it lie the few tools that mean everything in this world. A small knife, a flint shard, a strip of dried meat, and beside them, something else, wrapped in hide. You open it gently. Inside are your tools of the night, a bone blade polished smooth, a charm carved from antler, and a heavy stone with sharp edges. The first two are for reassurance. The last is for defense. Archaeologists often find weapons beside Ice Age sleeping areas. Spears, axes, knives, and even small piles of stones ready to throw, all within arm's reach. It's not coincidence. Those ancient sleepers went to bed prepared for danger because the night offered no promises. Safety was never total. It was negotiated hour by hour. You slide the stone closer to your hand and look toward the cave's mouth. The hides covering it shift faintly with the wind, breathing in and out like an animal. Beyond them, you can sense the open world, still dark, still waiting. You strain your ears. Nothing. The silence itself feels alive. Most anthropologists believe that keeping tools nearby became a psychological ritual as much as a practical one. It calmed the mind, a talisman against uncertainty. The blade wasn't just a weapon, it was reassurance. Like a modern lock on a door, it allowed the mind to drift towards sleep. Even now you can feel the comfort in the weight of it, solid and sure beneath your fingers. Curiously enough, some Ice Age sites show bones carved into shapes of animals, bears, wolves, birds of prey, and found near sleeping areas. These figurines were small, smooth from handling, their edges worn by touch. Scholars suggest they served as charms for protection, meant to keep danger at bay while people slept. In a world where so little could be controlled, belief itself became a weapon. You turn the small charm in your hand now, feeling the grooves of its carved eyes. It's shaped like a bird, wings outstretched, head tilted upward. You wonder who made it, what they whispered when they handed it down. Perhaps the same prayer you feel hovering unspoken in your chest. Keep us safe until the light returns. The air shifts. A draft sneaks through a gap in the wall, cool and damp. The embers respond with a soft hiss. You watch them glow and fade, like a heartbeat seen from afar. You know that soon you'll need to feed them again. But for now, you just listen to the cave, to the wind, to the faint murmur of your own thoughts. Most historians agree that these nights, poised between vigilance and sleep, shaped the earliest human awareness of mortality. Every ember fading too quickly, every breath too shallow, every growl in the dark was a reminder. Life hung by a thread of warmth and will. Perhaps that's why ancient peoples surrounded themselves with tokens of control tools, charms, stones. They weren't superstition, they were structure. You pick up the flint knife and run your thumb along its dull edge. The surface is smooth from years of use, the stone's curve fitting perfectly into your palm. It feels less like an object and more like an extension of your body, something that's known your pulse for a very long time. You hold it for a moment, then lay it back down carefully, the blade angled toward the cave's entrance. Outside, a sound rises, a faint rustle, soft but distinct. You tense, eyes fixed on the moving hide. It might be wind, it might not. Your fingers close around the stone again. The noise stops. The silence stretches until it trembles. You wait, muscles tight, ready. Then a familiar grunt. One of the hunters, returning late, brushing snow from their shoulders. Relief floods through you, so sudden it almost hurts. You set the stone down and laugh quietly under your breath, a sound half joy, half exhaustion. The hunter nods to you, wordless, and crawls inside, the smell of frost and blood following them. They drop their spear and collapse near the fire, asleep before you can even offer warmth. You feed the embers a handful of dried moss. The flame returns, small but sure. The glow paints the tools beside you in copper light. The blade gleams. The charm seems to watch. You add a twig, then another. The fire sighs, alive again. A peculiar discovery from a site in Germany revealed a sleeping circle with stones arranged neatly in a crescent beside each bedding space. At first, researchers thought they were structural, but analysis showed they were deliberately placed objects, some marked with pigment or scratches. No clear function except perhaps comfort. Maybe people found solace in the simple symmetry of the familiar. You can imagine it, each sleeper arranging their stones before lying down, marking their place in the fragile order of night. You lie back, mimicking that act, aligning your tools neatly beside you. The motion feels ceremonial. The flint here, the charm there, the stone within reach. You exhale slowly, and the tension in your body begins to melt away. The act of readiness becomes its own lullaby. Experts still debate the nature of these nighttime rituals. Some call them practical habits, others call them precursors to spirituality. Perhaps they were both. Humans were learning, even then, that fear can be managed through preparation, that symbols can make the unknown bearable. The hunter beside you snores softly now, the firelight flickering across their face. You reach for your charm one more time, rubbing its smooth wings between your fingers. The motion is rhythmic, calming. The bird seems to hum faintly in your grip, though you know it's only the sound of your pulse echoing through bone. You place it on your chest, close enough that its cool weight anchors you. The warmth from the fire, the faint glow on the walls, the steady breathing around you, all of it folds together into a kind of peace. Not safety exactly, but peace. Before sleep takes you, your last thought drifts toward the objects at your side. The stone, the blade, the charm. You realize they are more than tools. They are extensions of the self, pieces of human persistence carved against the cold. The first bedside guardians, waiting in silence, reminding every sleeper that courage doesn't always roar, it sometimes just rests nearby. Outside, snow begins to fall again, soft as breath. The sound of it gathers at the entrance, muffled and patient. The fire flares once more, stretching shadows across the tusks. You close your eyes, one hand resting on the charm, the other near the stone. The night moves around you, vast and watchful, but you feel its power differently now. You are not unarmed. You are not unguarded. You are human. When you next wake, it is to a sky bleeding pink through the storm's remains. The air feels warmer, though warm here only means less deadly. The fire has dwindled again, but the cave glows faintly with reflected light from the snow outside. Soft, pale, forgiving. You stretch your limbs beneath the furs, feeling the stiffness of sleep give way to motion. The others are already stirring, voices low, movements practiced and slow. The hunters move first, their bodies lean silhouettes against the entrance. They wrap hides tighter, sharpen spear tips, check the bundles of dried meat they carry on their backs. The old man from before sits near the hearth, rubbing his palms together as if still feeling the night's cold. You join him quietly, letting the warmth of his presence settle around you like another layer of fur. Archaeologists studying Ice Age camps have found evidence of this quiet morning ritual: ashes stirred, embers coaxed back into flame, firestones rearranged into careful circles. It's not religion, not exactly, but repetition with purpose. The act of reviving the fire mirrored the act of reviving the self. To greet the dawn was to declare, "We survived again." You lean forward, blowing gently on the embers. They glow faintly, then flare as you feed them dried moss. The smell rises immediately, sweet, sharp, earthy. A little smoke curls up toward the ceiling, carrying warmth into the still air. One by one, people gather around, palms extended, eyes half-lidded with fatigue. A curious observation from thermal analysis shows that these Ice Age fires were rarely allowed to die completely. The coals were banked in ash, preserved through the day, carried even from one camp to the next inside bone or clay containers. Fire was portable, as precious as food. You imagine the tenderness of that task, someone walking through snow cradling a glowing ember like a heartbeat, ensuring that the next night would have warmth. Most anthropologists agree that this continuity made fire something sacred, not in the divine sense, but in the emotional one. It represented memory. Each flame was born from another, linking generations through heat and light. Even now, you can feel that lineage in the spark you just revived, a whisper from hands thousands of years gone. The group begins to move through their morning chores. Someone mends a strap, someone cracks bones for marrow. The sound of stone tools clicking fills the space with rhythm. There's something soothing about it, work performed without words, as natural as breathing. You catch yourself smiling, because it reminds you that humanity's first symphony wasn't music at all. It was labor, shared in unison. Curiously enough, residue analysis from Ice Age grinding stones reveals traces of crushed herbs and roots mixed with animal fat. These weren't just food preparations, they may have been primitive balms, used to soothe cracked skin or frostbite. Even surrounded by hardship, people found ways to heal each other. It's humbling to think that kindness may be older than civilization itself. You glance outside. The light grows brighter, the sky turning from pink to pale gold. Snow glitters like powdered glass. The hunters are gone now, their tracks already half covered by the wind. You stand, shake out your furs, and step beyond the hide curtain. The cold bites immediately, sharp and honest. You breathe in, letting it scrape your lungs clean. The air smells of wood smoke, salt, and faraway water. Somewhere beneath the snow, a river still runs slow, invisible, unstoppable. It reminds you of the blood in your own veins. Life flows beneath the frozen crust, waiting for warmth to return. Most climatologists studying Ice Age hydrology agree that even during the coldest millennia, liquid water persisted underground and under ice sheets. These hidden rivers became lifelines for humans and animals alike. Camps were often built near them, not by coincidence, but by ancient memory. The rhythm of water meant safety, and its murmur in the distance lulled even the wary to sleep. You walk toward the sound now, a faint trickle somewhere beyond the ridge. The snow crunches beneath your boots, loud in the stillness. Each step sinks deep, sending tiny avalanches of powder cascading around your ankles. When you reach the edge, you see it, a stream cutting through the snow like a wound of silver. Its surface steams faintly where sunlight strikes. You kneel beside it and dip your fingers in. The cold stings, but it's clean alive. You cup your hands, drink, and feel the shock of freshness shoot through your chest. For a brief, dizzy moment, you remember what summer feels like. No one's entirely sure how Ice Age people kept themselves hydrated during the longest freezes. Some evidence suggests they melted snow in hide pouches over fire. Others believe they harvested ice and stored it inside shelters to thaw gradually. But the discovery of streamside camps tells another story, that people followed water not just for hunting, but for peace. The sound itself was comfort. You stay there for a while, just listening. The water murmurs softly, and in that rhythm you hear something familiar. The crackle of fire, the rustle of sleep, the beating of your own heart. It's as if the entire world is breathing the same quiet exhale. When you return to the cave, the others are packing up. The fire is still alive but small, its job done. The old man gestures toward it, then toward a flat stone on which a tiny ember glows alone. You understand instantly it will travel with you. The fire will never truly die. You wrap it carefully in dried moss and place it inside a shell, closing it like a secret. Experts continue to debate whether these carried embers were viewed symbolically or simply functionally. Some argue they represented continuity, the soul of the group, moving from place to place. Others say it was just efficiency, but maybe both are true. After all, survival and meaning often blur together in the human mind. You sling your pack over your shoulder and look around the cave one last time. The wall with the handprints catches your eye. Your mark is still there, faint but visible, black against the stone. You touch it once, then turn away. The wind greets you at the entrance, sharp but less cruel now. The group moves out, a slow procession of fur-clad figures disappearing into the white. The footprints fill quickly behind you, but that doesn't matter. What matters is the ember tucked inside your shell, pulsing softly against your chest. The warmth feels alive, like a heartbeat that isn't yours alone. You realize that this is how humanity survived, not by conquering the cold, but by carrying its opposite within. Fire, warmth, memory, each passed from hand to hand, night to night, until even now, somewhere deep in your own life, you still tend that same glow. As the cave disappears behind you, the snow crunches steady and rhythmic beneath your feet. You don't look back. You don't need to. You've learned what every Ice Age wanderer learned. The only thing you ever really take with you is warmth. And as long as you keep it alive, you're never truly lost. The march stretches long across the pale horizon. The snow, once soft, has crusted into thin ice that cracks beneath each step. The air is thin, almost soundless. You can hear only your breathing, the steady rhythm of lungs against frost. Ahead, the hunters move like shadows, their spears glinting faintly in the weak light. The cold presses from every direction, a living weight. You touch your chest, feeling for the small shell that holds the ember. It's still warm. The knowledge steadies you, the tiny fire inside that fragile container, alive despite everything. It's hard not to think of it as a heart. Most anthropologists agree that carrying fire changed the pace of human migration. Groups could travel farther, sleeping in new shelters without losing warmth. They didn't have to wait for lightning strikes or volcanic sparks. They owned flame. Fire transformed from miracle to companion. Every night's campfire was a descendant of another. Every sunrise meant another ember saved. You trudge onward, boots sinking into knee-deep snow. Your breath freezes on your fur hood, turning its edge to crystal. The group moves in quiet unison, pausing only when someone falls behind. When that happens, another extends a hand without a word. No speeches, no ceremony, just survival's quiet choreography. A peculiar find at an Ice Age site in Central Europe shows traces of soot along the inside of conch shells and hollow bones. Scientists believe these were portable braziers, embers kept smoldering during travel. Sometimes, fragments of moss and animal hair still cling to the inner surface, proof that even tiny fires were cradled like infants. You can picture the scene perfectly. A traveler kneeling to relight a dying spark, breath clouding in the wind, face lit from below by the faintest orange glow. You glance over your shoulder. The old man lags behind, moving slower today. His breath comes shallow, and his steps leave smaller imprints. The woman carrying the child turns back to help him, looping her arm through his. For a moment, the three of them walk together, the ancient, the mother, and the future, side by side in the endless white. You can't help but smile. Most scientists agree that Ice Age journeys demanded not only strength, but astonishing compassion. Fossil evidence shows that even injured or elderly individuals often lived for years under the care of their groups. Bones healed, teeth were replaced with softer diets, injuries tended by hands that refused to let go. The frozen world didn't kill kindness, it refined it. The wind rises again, keening across the valley like a flute played by ghosts. The sound is eerie but rhythmic. Someone begins to hum along, low, steady, matching the wind's tone. Another joins. Soon the whole group hums softly, moving in step. It's not music for beauty, it's music for breath. The sound keeps pace, turning the march into meditation. Archaeologists studying rhythmic work songs in later hunter-gatherer cultures believe this behavior began much earlier during migrations like these. Coordinated sound not only synchronized steps, it calmed fear, conserved energy, and reminded the group of their shared existence. Even when words didn't yet exist, the hum said enough. We are still here. You feel your throat vibrate as you add your voice. The air hums through your chest, rising into the icy wind. The rhythm keeps your heartbeat steady. For the first time in days, you don't feel the distance. You feel belonging. Hours pass. The landscape changes subtly, hills rising into sharp ridges, snow thinning to patches of dark stone. A herd's tracks appear faintly ahead, deep depressions shaped like crescents. The hunters quicken their pace. You can sense it too, the pulse of possibility. Meat, hide, life. You follow until the group stops on a high ridge. Below stretches a wide valley streaked with white and grey. At its center, clustered near a frozen river, stands a herd of bison. Their bodies steam faintly in the cold, breath rising in rhythmic clouds. They move slowly, their sighs defying the emptiness around them. You feel your pulse quicken. This could feed the group for weeks. Most archaeologists agree that Ice Age hunts were not constant chaos but carefully timed strategy. People learned to read the wind, to watch herd behavior, to use snow itself as a weapon, drifting it into paths, driving animals into traps. Hunting wasn't brute force. It was patience sculpted into motion. The hunters spread out. The old man stays behind with the women and children, guarding the ember. You crouch low, snow pressing against your knees. The air thickens with quiet focus. Then, a signal, a raised hand, a breath held. Movement. Spears flash. The herd surges forward, hooves cracking ice, snow exploding in every direction. The sound is thunder, the sight a storm of fur and breath. You don't move. You watch. The hunters flow like shadows across the slope, cutting, circling, driving. The bison turn, panic spreading through them like wind through grass. One falls, then another. The snow turns dark beneath them. The echoes fade, replaced by heavy breathing, then silence. Curiously enough, kill sites from this era show a kind of ritual embedded in practicality. After a hunt, people gathered around the fallen animals, touching them, sometimes smearing ash or red ochre onto their hides before butchering. Some researchers think it was gratitude, others call it appeasement, perhaps both. You watch now as the hunters do the same, laying hands on the bison's flank, whispering sounds too soft to hear. They work quickly, skillfully. Steam rises into the air, mingling with the cold until the entire valley smells of iron and smoke. You look away, not out of fear, but respect. Death here is never wasted. Every cut becomes nourishment, every bone a tool, every hide a blanket for the nights ahead. The group regathers as the light fades. Meat is packed, bones strapped, hides folded carefully. The air grows colder again, but spirits rise. The fire they'll build tonight will burn brighter, smell richer, because it will mean abundance. The ember in your shell has done its work. It's carried you to survival once again. Most historians of early humanity argue that such shared hunts were the foundation of culture. The fire afterward wasn't just for warmth, it was for stories. Each successful kill gave birth to memory, a narrative to retell during long nights, reinforcing courage and teaching rhythm to fear. The hunt was the first myth, the fire its stage. You help gather what you can carry, hands slick with cold fat. The old man approaches, touching the shell at your chest as if to ensure the ember still lives. You nod. His lips move silently in acknowledgement. The world is still freezing, endless, merciless, but not tonight. Tonight, you'll eat. Tonight, you'll rest without counting hours. The group begins to move again, heading back toward the cave. The sky darkens to purple, the stars already flickering above. You feel the ember's faint warmth pulse once against your skin. You think of what it means that inside this shell, the same fire burns that once cooked mammoth meat and warded off lions, that kept infants alive and marked handprints on stone. That same glow has never died. As you walk, The aurora rises again, green ribbons flowing like breath across the heavens. The wind hums low. Someone behind you begins to sing, softly. The song carries forward, blending with the sound of your steps. You touch the shell once more, feeling its warmth bloom beneath your fingers. You whisper into the night, "We survived again." And the wind, almost tender now, seems to whisper back, "So far." The return to camp is slower, heavier, filled with the sounds of soft grunts and dragging sleds. The smell of meat clings to the air, a strange mixture of triumph and exhaustion. The snow glows blue beneath the rising moon, and each figure casts a long shadow that moves like a ghost tethered to its owner. When the cave finally comes into view, it feels less like a shelter and more like a miracle waiting in the dark. You enter first, pushing aside the frozen hide curtain. The old coals still shimmer faintly, dim but loyal. You kneel beside them, open your shell, and reveal the ember you carried all day. It's smaller now, just a faint heartbeat of orange surrounded by ash but still alive. You blow gently. The ember pulses once, twice, then flares. The others exhale audibly behind you, a collective sigh of relief, ancient and shared. Most archaeologists agree that carrying embers over long distances marked a fundamental leap in human endurance. It wasn't just a practical act, it was symbolic continuity, a refusal to start over. The same flame that cooked one meal might light the next camp's fire days later. In a way, humans had learned not just to survive, but to preserve memory through heat. You feed the revived flame-dried grass, then small bones. The fire crackles, catches and grows, painting the walls gold. The hunters drop their loads with groans and stretch aching limbs. The old man leans near the fire, his eyes glinting with the orange reflection. The woman who carried the child sets her down on the bedding and begins to hum again, a low rhythm that blends with the fire's whisper. A curious discovery, in an ancient Pyrenean cave, shows blackened stones arranged deliberately in layers. These hearths, built over old ashes, were stacked like pages, each layer a different night's story, the residue of thousands of evenings. Fireplaces that lasted generations, tended like living things. You imagine this same cave centuries later, filled with the same smoke, the same laughter, the same stubborn warmth. You settle beside the fire as the smell of roasting meat fills the space. The air grows heavy and rich, making your stomach growl. Someone passes you a strip of fat, warm, glistening, still sizzling from the stone slab it was cooked on. You bite into it. The taste is smoky, wild, alive. In that moment, you understand why feasting was sacred. It wasn't about excess, but about relief. Most anthropologists believe that the first communal meals weren't merely sustenance, they were binding ceremonies. To eat from the same fire was to declare kinship. Food became memory, flavor became story. Even now, as the grease runs down your chin, you feel connected not only to the people around you, but to every person who ever sat by firelight, chewing slowly, silently thanking the flame. The group eats in near silence, save for the occasional crackle of fat or murmur of gratitude. The old man gestures toward the fire with his bone spoon and says a single word, something guttural, rhythmic, familiar. It might mean home, or together, or perhaps just warm. Everyone repeats it softly, one after another, until the sound fades into the smoke. Curiously enough, linguistic researchers studying proto-languages suspect that many of humanity's oldest words were born from sounds like these onomatopoeic murmurs shaped by the environment itself. Fire, wind, warmth, and sleep. Each found its syllable long before it found grammar. The Ice Age wasn't silent, it was the nursery of speech. You finish eating, licking the last of the salt from your fingers. The fire burns lower now, steady and calm. Someone scrapes ash aside to reveal hot stones and lays strips of meat there to dry for later. Others lean back, full and drowsy, heads resting against hides or one another's shoulders. The air hums with that particular peace that comes only after hunger is sated, and danger seems for the moment far away. A peculiar detail in some ancient shelters shows clusters of stones arranged like miniature fire rings inside larger hearths. These smaller circles might have been used to keep food warm through the night or dry damp furs while people slept. It's easy to imagine a child waking before dawn to see the small orange glows scattered across the floor like constellations, tiny suns inside the earth. You lie back now, watching as sparks leap toward the ceiling and vanish into the dark. The warmth from the fire clings to your skin. Smoke drifts upward in slow ribbons, and for a moment you think it looks like writing a story told by the air itself. Experts still debate whether Ice Age humans understood fire as a living force or simply as a tool. Some say they spoke to it, fed it carefully, even gave it offerings. Others insist it was just necessity. But as you watch the flames shift and breathe, you can't help but see life in them. They flicker like heartbeat, sigh like breath, consume and give back in perfect rhythm. Fire, you realize, is both mirror and teacher. The child giggles suddenly, pointing at the sparks. The laughter ripples through the group, quiet and genuine. You find yourself laughing too, even as fatigue presses against your eyes. The old man grins wide, teeth bright in the firelight. He lifts a charred bone and waves it like a wand, tracing shapes in the smoke. Everyone watches, smiling. And for a brief moment, the Ice Age doesn't feel like a frozen wasteland. It feels like the inside of a story, warm, lit, alive. You close your eyes halfway and listen. Crackle, breath, hum, silence. The four elements of human night. The warmth presses deeper, heavy and soft. You shift slightly to lie on your side, the fire at your back, the murmur of others fading into distance. No one's quite sure whether Ice Age people dreamt of the same things we do: safety, love, fear, but the evidence of art, music, and ritual suggests they did. Sleep wasn't escape, it was connection. Every dream was a bridge back to meaning. You let your eyes fall shut completely. The air hums faintly, the fire sighs, and your body grows weightless. In the space between waking and rest, you sense the fire still watching, steady and patient. Somewhere deep in that warmth, you hear its whisper, the same one passed from ember to ember since the beginning. Rest now, I will keep the night away. And for the first time in a long while, you believe it. When dawn finally arrives, it does not so much appear as bloom, a slow spreading of silver through the cracks of snow and stone. The fire has sunk low again, its heart pulsing gently, the room still wrapped in its own smoky warmth. You open your eyes to the soft sound of movement, the shifting of hides, the quiet thud of someone's steps, the faintest murmur of wind filtering through the cave's mouth. You stretch, your joints creaking like the old wood of a ship. The others are waking too, rubbing their eyes, blinking at the dim light, already preparing for another day. The world outside remains merciless, but here, in this small bubble of soot and breath, there is continuity, a rhythm, a fragile order that refuses to die. Archaeologists examining soot layers in cave dwellings found signs of daily repetition, a cyclical pattern of ashes, footprints, and discarded bone fragments that repeated in near-perfect rhythm. It was the first routine in human history, born not from comfort but from survival. Even now, our days mirror those patterns. Wake, work, eat, rest, repeat. You crawl to the fire and stir the ashes. Beneath the grey crust, warmth still lingers, faint but persistent. You add a handful of moss, then lean forward and blow. The ember responds obediently, glowing brighter. The fire lives again. You can't help but smile. A curious note from one excavation mentions traces of human breath fossilized in calcified soot, microscopic bubbles of air, exhaled by people reviving fires just like this. Those tiny pockets, preserved for millennia, are whispers from your ancestors, caught forever inside stone. You like to imagine one belongs to you, left here as a message across time. We were cold too, but we learned warmth. The air smells cleaner now, fresher. Someone opens the hide curtain, and light rushes in a torrent of pale gold washing across tusks and walls. The group blinks, squinting at the brightness. It's beautiful in a stark, unforgiving way. The snow outside sparkles so fiercely that it almost hurts to look at. Most anthropologists agree that mornings in Ice Age shelters were moments of transition between danger and safety, exhaustion and purpose. It was when plans formed, when tasks divided naturally among the group. Some hunted, some gathered, some stayed behind to repair hides or tend the children. Life wasn't chaos. It was symphony played with few instruments, but perfect timing. You step outside into the crisp air, pulling your fur tighter. The cold bites instantly, sharp but clean. The world stretches white and infinite before you. Each breath crystallizes as you exhale, tiny diamonds scattering in the air. The horizon hums faintly with the promise of motion, the day's hunt, the trek, the endless continuation. Beneath your boots, the snow compresses into a distinct crunch, a sound that feels eternal. Even now, it's a sound unchanged by time. The same one your ancestors heard every morning for thousands of years. There's something grounding in that thought. Each step is an echo. A peculiar study on acoustic environments in glacial valleys reveals that sound traveled farther during the Ice Age. The dense, dry air carried vibrations over great distances, meaning that even whispers could cross valleys. Imagine the comfort of that, the idea that your voice, fragile as it is, might reach someone you can't even see. The world then wasn't empty. It was resonant. You look to your left and see the woman who sang lullabies the night before. She's kneeling beside the snow, drawing with a stick. Lines, curves, circles. The child watches beside her, small hands mimicking the motions. You realize she's teaching, passing something invisible from her mind to another's. The first form of education wasn't spoken, it was gesture. Most scholars believe that early humans communicated more with movement than words. The body told stories language could not. A pointed hand could mean hunt there. A palm pressed to the chest could mean, I am alive. And maybe a sweeping motion toward the sky simply meant, look, it's beautiful. The woman finishes her drawing a spiral, simple and elegant. She traces it once more with her finger, then covers it with a handful of snow. The gesture feels deliberate. She smiles at the child, who giggles and mimics her exactly. You understand what she's showing? Impermanence. Even in a world that erases everything, there is grace in the act of making. You return to the cave and help pack supplies. The smell of dried meat and smoked fat fills the air, mingled with the sweet, resinous scent of burning moss. The fire crackles softly behind you, the hearth at once heart and anchor. A fascinating study of prehistoric campsites suggests that fire placement within shelters was almost mathematical. Hearths were centered precisely where heat would radiate evenly, but smoke could escape primitive yet effective design. It means your ancestors didn't just survive nature, they understood it, shaping their world with quiet geometry. You watch as the old man tends to the tools, scraping, sharpening, humming under his breath. The rhythm of his work is hypnotic. You realize that what he's doing isn't merely maintenance, it's meditation. Every scrape of stone is a prayer to precision. Every strike of flint, a reminder that creation and destruction share the same motion. Experts continue to debate whether such acts were purely functional or deeply symbolic. Some see ritual in every repetition, others see only necessity. But perhaps that division never existed back then. When life itself is ritual, there's no need to separate the sacred from the practical. As the group finishes preparations, you glance once more at the wall where your handprint lingers. The soot has darkened overnight, deepening its color. It looks more certain now, as though the wall accepted your mark. You touch it lightly, and your fingers come away grey. The pigment stains your skin, a faint echo of those who came before. You step outside again, blinking at the glare. The air hums faintly with wind, carrying a promise of more snow. You can already see clouds forming on the horizon, heavy and dark. The others notice too. They exchange glances, wordless agreement passing between them. Move soon, before the next storm catches up. The fire in the cave burns steady, but you know it will fade once you leave. Still, its essence will continue carried in the embers, in the memory, in the smell clinging to your clothes. You've come to understand something profound. The fire isn't just a thing, it's a practice, an act of defiance that becomes identity. You gather your pack, secure the shell with the ember against your chest, and take one last look at the cave. It already feels like a memory, another heartbeat in the long chain of warmth stretching through time. The wind rises, the horizon darkens, and the first flakes begin to fall again. You pull your hood tighter and take the first step into the white. Each step feels both ancient and immediate, as though the land itself remembers every footprint that's ever crossed it. You don't know where you'll sleep tonight, or what you'll find, but you carry the ember, and that is enough. And somewhere behind you, unseen but eternal, the last curl of smoke from your fire rises toward the pale morning sky, a final whisper to the air, "We were here." By midday, the storm has settled into a slow, persistent drift. The snow falls thin and diagonal, a quiet curtain between sky and earth. Your group moves carefully across the frozen plain, following a narrow ridge where the wind sculpts the snow into rippling waves. Every sound feels hushed, absorbed by the endless white. The cold has its own kind of music, whispers of ice shifting underfoot, the faint hiss of wind against fur. You stop once to rest near a cluster of black rocks jutting through the snow like knuckles. They hold a faint warmth, drawn from sunlight stored hours ago. The old man leans against one, sighing with relief, and for a while the group simply sits breathing steam into the air, sharing silence instead of words. Archaeologists have found traces of soot and ash in similar rocky outcroppings, evidence that people once stopped in such places, using the stone's warmth to spark brief fires. Even temporary rest carried ritual. A pause, a breath, a recognition of endurance. It wasn't about reaching somewhere safer. It was about honoring the distance already traveled. You set down your pack, open the shell that holds your ember. The glow greets you like an old friend. You smile, coax it gently with a few dry twigs and moss. The fire catches instantly, its color startlingly bright against the grey day. Everyone gathers near it instinctively, hands outstretched, shoulders hunched together. Most anthropologists agree that fire's communal gravity shaped humanity as much as its heat. It drew bodies close, erased distance, demanded cooperation. The instinct to gather around warmth predates language. Even now you feel it, an unspoken need that pulls you inward. The old man sits across from you, eyes closed, palms extended toward the flame. He begins to hum a slow, throaty sound that vibrates softly through the air. It's the same tone you've heard before, somewhere between a sigh and a melody. One by one, others join in. The sound deepens, layers forming naturally, until the fire itself seems to hum back. Curiously enough, acousticians studying ancient shelters discovered that caves often amplified low-frequency sound, creating resonance that could make even a whisper feel sacred. It's possible that your ancestors discovered this accidentally, how voice and fire, when combined, could shape emotion. Maybe that's why the sound comforts you now. It's not just song, it's architecture. The humming fades into silence, replaced by the fire's soft popping. Snow continues to fall, thick and hypnotic. You watch the flakes drift into the flames and vanish with faint hisses. The fragility of it feels like poetry, each flake, a tiny, perfect thing that exists only to disappear into warmth. You reach into your pouch and pull out a small piece of carved bone. It's an awl, thin and sharp, used for stitching hides. You begin to mend a tear in your fur, the motion steady and rhythmic. Each stitch pulls the world back together in miniature, the act meditative. The woman beside you watches, then takes out her own needle, working in quiet parallel. A peculiar find at a prehistoric site revealed tiny bone needles, some no thicker than a matchstick, their eyes perfectly drilled. It astonished scientists, such precision in an age of survival. But perhaps it makes sense. When everything you own must protect you from death, craftsmanship becomes devotion. Every stitch is both engineering and prayer. You look up from your sewing, watching as the firelight dances on the rock faces around you. The flames paint moving patterns across the snow, making it look alive. Waves, beasts, faces. The child laughs and points, naming shapes no one else can see. For a moment, the world feels warm again, even friendly. Experts still argue whether Ice Age people found beauty in their world or merely function. Some insist they saw only survival. Others, looking at their art and their rituals, say they loved the world fiercely, even when it tried to kill them. Watching this moment, the laughter, the fire, the care, in every motion you can't help but believe the latter. The old man breaks a strip of dried meat and hands half to you. It's tough but flavorful, smoky from the last fire. You chew slowly, the salt waking your senses. Food, warmth, breath, all the essentials are present. Yet something else stirs inside you, the strange, unnameable satisfaction of being together. Curiously, archaeological residues of shared meals show not just practical evidence of cooking, but subtle markers of social equality, communal pots, evenly distributed portions. The Ice Age was brutal, but within each fire circle, fairness often prevailed. The cold demanded cooperation, and in that necessity, the seeds of compassion grew. After eating, the group falls into drowsy silence. The fire's glow pulses gently against the stone, and the sound of the snow softens, as if the world itself has decided to rest. You stretch your legs, feeling the ground's faint warmth seep upward. The stone beneath you vibrates slightly, a heartbeat from deep within the earth. Most geologists note that volcanic heat still threaded through the Ice Age's frozen crust. Even during glacial peaks, warmth sometimes rose from below, offering humans small miracles of survivable ground. Perhaps your ancestors learned to follow it, the hidden veins of fire beneath the ice. You like that idea? Warmth guiding wanderers through the cold, unseen but sure. The child has fallen asleep, curled up beside the woman. The old man adjusts the fur over them both, his hands careful, reverent. You watch him for a while, wondering how many winters he's seen, how many fires he's kept alive. His face carries the map of it, lines carved by wind, patience, and quiet faith. Experts continue to discuss whether these intergenerational groups had formal hierarchies or if leadership flowed naturally through respect. Evidence from burial sites suggests both. Some graves of elders are adorned with beads or pigments, while others rest as simply as any other. What seems universal, though, is reverence for age, the understanding that knowledge, not strength, was the truest form of protection. The fire sinks lower, its heat softer now, more intimate. You lie down, the snow still falling beyond the rock's shadow. The air inside the small circle feels thick with quiet, thick with meaning. You listen to the faint drip of melting frost, the gentle sighs of the sleeping. The wind outside murmurs, but it no longer sounds hostile. It's simply part of the night's music. You close your eyes. The fire's warmth lingers across your skin, sinking deeper until it becomes part of you. For the first time, you don't feel like a visitor in this frozen world. You feel like something the land itself has accepted. Before sleep takes you, you think of the ember you'll carry again tomorrow, the small, glowing heart that ties every night together. You realize it's more than fire now. It's memory. It's faith without words. It's proof that warmth is not just a physical thing, but a philosophy. To keep glowing, no matter how cold it gets. The snow whispers softly against the rock. The last flame curls inward, folding into ember. You drift into rest, wrapped in fur and silence, while the world outside renews its endless, shimmering stillness. And as you sink into dreams, the only sound that remains is the quiet pulse of the fire within you, refusing to go out. You wake to the strange stillness that follows deep snow, a silence so absolute that it feels sacred. Outside, the storm has buried the land in smooth white curves. The ridges softened, the horizon erased. Even sound itself seems slower, as though the air has thickened. When you step out from under the rock's shadow, your boots sink almost to your knees, and a fine mist of frost swirls with every move. The cold doesn't bite today, it glows. The rest of the group stirs gradually, brushing snow from their furs, shaking sleet from their limbs. The old man stamps a small circle around the fire to clear the space. You kneel beside him and uncover the embers you buried under ash the night before. They're still alive, dim, steady, waiting. You feed them moss, whispering a breath over the glowing dust. The light blooms, small but eager, rising through the smoke like a sunrise compressed into a single heartbeat. Archaeologists studying prehistoric hearths found that this act, resurrecting embers, was often ceremonial. Traces of pigment, bone beads, and crushed flowers were discovered near ancient fire pits, hinting that the daily ritual of rekindling light was accompanied by small offerings. Fire was never simply started, it was invited. You add a sliver of fat to the flame, and it rewards you instantly, flaring bright. The air fills with warmth, and that distinct smell of life preserved in smoke. The others gather close, as they always do. There is comfort in routine, in the gentle rhythm of shared motion. Someone laughs softly, steam puffing from their mouth like a ghost. Most anthropologists believe this morning circle the act of sharing firelight before the day's labor was humanity's first form of communion. No words, no hierarchy, just shared presence. Each face lit by the same flame, each breath warming the same air. It was both practical and spiritual, a simple acknowledgement that we live again. Curiously enough, in several Ice Age sites from Eurasia, archaeologists have found circular patterns of ash surrounded by carved stones etched with faint spirals. These may have been fire marks, symbols of gratitude or continuity, perhaps even a way to mark time itself. If each circle represented one dawn's flame, then humanity's first calendar wasn't the sky, it was the memory of warmth. The child toddles toward the fire, dragging a bundle of dry grass nearly twice their size. The group chuckles as they help feed it into the flames. The old man nods solemnly, as though accepting a sacred offering. You realize that every gesture here, every feed of wood, every hum around the fire is a lesson. No one lectures. The teaching is done through repetition and rhythm, a school built of warmth and patience. Experts who study hunter-gatherer societies note that teaching was never formalized in such communities. Knowledge flowed like heat, absorbed naturally by proximity. The young learned by watching hands, not hearing words. You can see it now, the child's eyes fixed on the fire, the tiny muscles of their face mirroring the concentration of their elders. They're learning more than survival, they're learning reverence. You sit back, letting the warmth soak into your bones. The woman who sang lullabies last night hums again, her voice low and steady. The tune is different now, less soothing, more like a pulse. The hunters begin to prepare for movement, tightening bindings, checking tools. The sound of scraping flint mixes with the crackle of fire, a symphony of readiness. A fascinating discovery from an Ice Age site in southern France revealed a collection of rhythmic instruments, percussion stones, sticks worn smooth by tapping. Scientists suggest they were used not for ritual but for coordination, to keep groups moving in unison. Rhythm, they say, is humanity's oldest form of teamwork. The heartbeat became the metronome of survival. You tap your fingers softly against your knee, matching the hum's rhythm. The old man notices and joins in, tapping his staff against the ground in perfect time. Soon everyone is following the faint sound of hands, bones, and sticks merging into a pulse so organic that even the wind seems to fall in sync. For a brief moment, it feels like the world itself has a heartbeat. The rhythm slows, then fades. Laughter follows a low, genuine sound that breaks through the cold like a thaw. The old man grins, his eyes twinkling with mischief. You realize that in all the hardship, humor survived too. The Ice Age didn't erase laughter. It made it sacred. Most scholars believe that early humans used laughter to regulate tension within groups. It released fear, renewed bonds, reminded everyone that even in darkness, joy remained possible. The fossil record may never capture a joke, but it remembers the breath of those who laughed. You watch as the hunters depart again, their figures shrinking into the bright white distance. The woman tends to the fire while humming under her breath. The child begins to draw on the snow again, circles within circles. You help mend a torn strap, the smell of smoke clinging to your fingers. Each motion feels ancient, practiced, endless. A peculiar finding from sites in Siberia shows repeated layers of overlapping footprints near hearths, evidence of generations walking the same paths within a single shelter. It means that some camps lasted not days but decades, rebuilt and repaired by descendants of the first occupants. Imagine that, a home without walls, but with memory woven into the very soil. You lie back for a moment, resting your head against a folded hide. The warmth from the fire presses against your side, gentle and alive. The air is filled with faint sounds, whispered conversation, wind across the ridge, the occasional crackle of ice breaking in the distance. Each sound feels deliberate, meaningful, as though the world itself has learned to whisper softly so as not to disturb your rest. Experts still argue whether Ice Age people truly experienced relaxation, or if vigilance never left them even in peace. But the rhythm of your heartbeat says otherwise. You feel calm, not empty, but full. The silence isn't danger now, it's reprieve. The old man speaks a single word you've heard before, the same one he uses when tending the fire. You don't know its meaning exactly, but you feel it in your chest. Maybe it means alive, maybe it means again, or maybe both. You repeat it under your breath as you close your eyes. The fire hums, the snow whispers, and for a fleeting, perfect moment, it feels as though the world is holding its breath, not out of fear, but contentment. The warmth seeps deep into your skin, filling every hollow space the cold once claimed. The flame flickers, small and steady, and you think, this is it. The truest luxury of the Ice Age wasn't food or shelter, it was stillness, the rare gift of a moment, untouched by need. You drift into sleep again, not out of exhaustion but trust. The ember will keep its promise, the dawn will come again, the snow will fall, and you will light the fire once more. And in that endless rhythmic cycle of cold and warmth, the first heartbeat of civilization continues to whisper beneath the ice. By the next evening, the horizon glows with a strange orange haze, the kind that comes when the sun sinks behind frozen mist. The air feels heavier tonight, tinged with the faint metallic scent of coming snow. You and the others have moved downhill into a valley, where the wind is calmer, and the ground hides patches of frozen grass under its surface crust. It isn't much, but after weeks of traveling through white silence, even the faint color of brown feels like luxury. The group gathers to build a larger fire than usual. The old man insists, tapping his staff into the snow in small circles before choosing a spot. You help clear the area, pushing aside snow until earth appears cold, solid, and dark. Someone arranges stones, another breaks dry branches. You unwrap your shell carefully, revealing the glowing ember you've carried since the morning. It's weak now, a single orange vein amid grey ash. You kneel, cup your hands around it, and whisper the same soft encouragement you've learned from countless nights. The ember brightens, then the first curl of flame unfurls like breath returning to a body. Experts examining ancient fire pits in open tundra regions discovered that the ground beneath often shows layers of melted permafrost, evidence that the same spot had hosted hundreds of fires, sometimes over generations. The old man's instinct wasn't superstition, it was science remembered in muscle memory. Heat leaves traces, and warmth loves to return to the places it's been before. The hunters lay slabs of stone to serve as cooking surfaces. The woman prepares strips of bison meat, the child watching closely as she rubs the pieces with crushed herbs and fat. You're surprised by the aroma, sweet and sharp at once. The scent alone feels nourishing. Most archaeologists agree that Ice Age humans, far from eating only raw meat, developed complex methods of cooking with herbs, bones, and fats. Evidence from residue analysis reveals traces of garlic, mustard, and wild onion, proof that even amid scarcity, people sought flavor. You smile at that. Even surrounded by ice, humans still reached for joy. As the flames rise, you notice something in the snow nearby. A series of deep prints leading toward the ridge. Wolf tracks. Large ones. The hunters see them too. They share a look but say nothing. One adjusts his spear. Another shifts closer to the fire. The old man murmurs something under his breath. Low and rhythmic. You've learned this tone, it's neither prayer nor fear. It's communication with the night. Archaeological evidence of wolves near human camps tells a complicated story. Some experts believe early wolves were scavengers, hovering near firelight for scraps. Others propose that these moments of proximity birthed the first alliance. The line between predator and companion blurred beside the flames. You glance at the tracks again, half expecting to see eyes in the dark. But nothing moves. The silence hums. You pass around roasted meat, the surface charred and glistening. When you bite into it, the flavor is unlike anything you've tasted before, rich, smoky, alive. The warmth spreads through your chest, and for a moment you feel not just fed, but renewed. The others eat slowly, savoring each bite. The child hums softly, mimicking the crackle of the fire. Curiously enough, in many prehistoric sites, bones show signs of careful marrow extraction using heated stones, a sign that nothing went to waste. Every meal was both feast and conservation. Even the fire was part of it. Not just cooking tool, but participant, giver, receiver. You lean back, the firelight reflecting on the frost around you, making the snow look as if it's burning from within. The old man gazes into the flames, then lifts his hand. With a stick, he draws symbols in the soot near the edge of the fire pit loops. Lines, small dots. You've seen him do this before, always after a successful day. The marks are never the same, but their rhythm feels deliberate. Most historians of early cognition believe that this was the dawn of abstract thought, symbols not meant to depict, but to record. These soot drawings were early calendars, story fragments, tallies of hunts or days. The first written language wasn't carved in stone, it was drawn in ash. The child watches the marks, wide-eyed. The woman adds one of her own, a curved line that intersects the old man's dots. He nods approvingly. The hunters grin. You pick up a stick and draw a small flame beside theirs. Your own contribution. When you're done, the pattern looks like a constellation reflected on Earth. Everyone falls quiet, staring at it. No one knows for sure what such symbols meant, but researchers suggest they were an act of memory, a way to make impermanence feel less final. You can sense that too. As the wind moves across the valley, you realize these lines will vanish by morning. And yet, somehow, that feels right. Warmth is meant to fade. What matters is the act of lighting it again. The wolves return, or maybe they were never gone. You see their shapes now, faint outlines beyond the firelight. 4, maybe 5. Their breath steams in the air, white against black. The hunters sit still, watching. No one moves. The wolves watch too, neither retreating nor advancing. Between you stretches a ribbon of orange glow, flickering on snow like a barrier of stars. Experts continue to debate whether the first wolf-human encounters ended in fear or curiosity. Some fossils show wolves buried beside humans, suggesting kinship. Others show teeth marks on bones, a harsher story. Perhaps the truth has always lived somewhere between. You stare at them quietly. Their eyes catch the firelight, golden, steady. They don't growl. They don't flee. One tilts its head, as if considering you. The child shifts closer to the woman. She rests a hand protectively over their back. But even she doesn't look afraid. The wolves linger a little longer, then turn, melting into the snow as silently as they came. The old man exhales, long and calm. The hunters laugh softly, nervous but relieved. The tension dissolves into warmth again. You add another stick to the fire, and it roars brighter, as if pleased by your offering. You sit there for a long time afterward, watching the fire shrink to steady rhythm again. The marks in the soot glow faintly, then begin to fade. The wind rises and carries the ash upward in soft spirals. You follow its motion with your eyes, imagining the symbols traveling into the sky, etched briefly against the darkness before vanishing into the cold. Some scholars claim that storytelling began like this not from triumph, but from stillness, the urge to mark, to remember, to make fleeting warmth permanent in words or motion. The old man doesn't speak, but you can feel his story filling the air nonetheless. You stretch your hands toward the fire one last time, letting the heat sink deep. Around you, the others are already lying down, their shadows long across the snow. The valley is silent again, but it's not empty. Somewhere beyond, the wolves may be watching still, drawn not by hunger now, but by fascination. You close your eyes. The fire hums low, gentle as breath. The air smells of smoke and meat and faint ash. You think of the wolves, the child, the ember you'll carry again tomorrow, and the warmth that has no name but continues anyway. Somewhere between wakefulness and sleep, a single truth flickers in your mind. Survival was never just about fire. It was about keeping company with the darkness, learning not to fear it, but to glow inside it. And with that thought, you drift off, the snow falling slow and soundless, as if the world itself were tucking you in. By morning, the wolves' tracks have frozen solid, thin white hollows leading toward the far ridge. You study them in the dim light, the impressions sharp, almost elegant. They look like punctuation marks written by nature, a language you can nearly read. You follow their curve for a few steps, then stop, smiling faintly. The wolves were close enough to steal heat from the fire, but not close enough to steal fear. Something about that balance feels right. The old man joins you, leaning on his staff, following your gaze. He doesn't speak, but he hums softly, an old habit now, a rhythm that fills silences before they grow too wide. You hum back. The sound is deep, easy, familiar. It travels over the snow and disappears into the still air. Experts who study the early domestication of animals often point to the strange mutual recognition that began somewhere in the Ice Age. Humans and wolves, both social hunters, both weary of solitude, both drawn to warmth. Whether the first bond came from shared food or shared silence, no one knows. But you sense it tonight. Survival was never a competition. It was a quiet truce. The group begins to pack again. The meat from last night is divided carefully, wrapped in hide. Nothing is wasted, not fat, not bone, not sinew. The air smells faintly sweet from the remnants of char. You kneel and scatter a pinch of snow over the last glowing coals, watching the steam curl upward. The ashes hiss, then fade to grey. It's always a little sad, extinguishing warmth you tended with such care. But it's part of the rhythm. Fire dies, only to be reborn. A curious discovery in archaeological fire sites revealed repeated ash mounds, layered over centuries. Each generation built its hearths atop the remains of the old, like sedimentary memory. Fireplaces became time capsules, each layer a season's worth of nights, stories and breaths. The people who slept there may have moved on, but their warmth stayed. You gather your things and fall into step with the others. The valley stretches wide, dotted with ancient pine and streaked by frozen rivers. The air has that particular silence that comes before snow again, a poised stillness that makes you whisper without meaning to. Hours pass before you find shelter, a narrow cave cut into a limestone wall, its entrance half covered with icicles that glitter like teeth. Inside, the air smells faintly of stone dust and old smoke. Someone lived here long ago. You can feel it immediately. On the walls are faint smudges of ochre and charcoal handprints, spirals, and the faded outline of what might once have been a deer. Most archaeologists agree that returning to old shelters was common among Ice Age nomads. These caves were more than safe spaces. They were memory vaults. Families returned to them each generation, repainting walls, rekindling hearths, and adding new marks beside the old. You can sense that continuity now, ghosts of past fires glowing invisibly in the stone. You set down your pack, unwrap your shell, and reveal the ember once more. It's faint, almost gone. You blow gently, feed it moss, and coax it back to life. The light returns, reflecting off the cave walls in trembling patterns. For a heartbeat, the ancient paintings seem to move, shadows dancing, animals running, hands waving through time. A strange note in an academic journal once described how flickering firelight made prehistoric art appear animated. Some researchers even proposed that this was intentional, that the artists designed their images to interact with flame. The first cinema, thousands of years before the word existed. You sit in silence, mesmerized by the illusion. The deer seems to leap across the wall, its form pulsing with the rhythm of the fire. The old man chuckles softly, watching it too. The woman hums, rocking the child in her lap. The sound merges with the crackle of burning pine. For a brief, fragile moment, the line between art, life, and dream dissolves. You reach out toward the light and let it fall across your fingers. The heat stings gently, just enough to remind you that it's real. You draw your hand back and study your palm, the faint glow mirrored there. A temporary flame in skin. That's what humanity has always done, you think. Borrowed light from something larger, carried it in fragile form, and called it meaning. Most anthropologists believe that the earliest spiritual awareness came not from gods or thunder, but from this sensation, the mingling of warmth and light against flesh. Fire became the first metaphor, the first teacher. Its lesson was simple. What glows can vanish, and what vanishes can be born again. The old man breaks the spell by tossing a handful of herbs into the flames. The smell changes, instantly sharp, resinous, almost sweet. The smoke curls in delicate spirals, brushing the low ceiling, then flowing toward the cave mouth like a sigh. Everyone watches quietly. You suspect they've done this before, maybe every time they find a new shelter, a cleansing of space. Curiously, chemical analysis of ancient ash piles has revealed traces of juniper and sage. These were not cooking fuels. They were aromatic offerings, likely used for purification or ceremony. You can almost imagine it. After long travel, after death or loss, the first act upon entering shelter was not rest but renewal. The woman sprinkles her own herbs, crushed leaves, stored carefully in a pouch made of hide. The scent deepens, layering into the air until the entire cave smells alive. The child giggles, reaching toward the smoke, trying to catch it. The old man laughs too, tapping his staff gently in rhythm. You join them, the sound of wood against stone echoing softly in the chamber. No one knows exactly how Ice Age people defined joy, but you're sure this is it. Not absence of danger, but the presence of shared light. The night deepens. The fire burns steady now, its reflection painting the cave walls gold and red. The drawings seem to breathe in that glow. You lie back on your bedding, still watching the play of shadows. The hum continues, lower now, more like a lullaby. The rhythm of the group's breathing sinks to the crackle of flame. Experts still debate whether these communal sounds, the hums, the songs, the synchronized breaths, had religious meaning, or if they were simply comfort. But perhaps the question itself is modern. In the Ice Age, there was no separation between faith and feeling. To breathe in unison was prayer enough. The fire pops, sending a spray of sparks toward the ceiling. One lands near your hand, glowing briefly before fading into black dust. You smile at it, thinking how fleeting and beautiful warmth always is. You close your eyes, the scent of herbs still thick around you, the air humming softly with the rhythm of breath and flame. Outside, the wind howls faintly through the valley, but the cave holds steady, your small pocket of defiance carved against eternity. You drift towards sleep again, knowing the ember will survive another night. And deep within that drowsy warmth, one thought lingers, soft as smoke. Fire may have taught humans how to live, but it also taught them how to dream. When you wake again, the fire is still glowing. The air is warmer than before, filled with that rich, woody scent that lingers long after a night's burn. A thin ribbon of smoke curls toward the cave's mouth, threading through morning light that filters soft and pale through the icicles. For once, you don't shiver when you breathe. Your lungs fill easily. The cold is still there, yes, but softened, tamed. You sit up slowly, pulling the furs around your shoulders. The others are waking too. The old man stirs the ashes with a stick, his movements patient, deliberate. The woman hums a slow tune, the same lullaby she sang before sleep, though now it feels like a greeting to the dawn. The child plays with a small bone figurine, tracing its smooth edge across the dirt. The scene feels peaceful, ordinary even, and in the Ice Age, ordinary is sacred. Most archaeologists agree that moments like these, domestic, quiet, uneventful, were the backbone of survival. The Ice Age was not constant chaos, but long stretches of calm, punctuated by bursts of danger. In those pauses, humans learned to breathe, to build rhythm, to trust that stillness didn't mean weakness. You can feel it here, in the way no one rushes, in the way silence feels complete rather than empty. You reach for your pack, unwrap a small pouch of dried meat, and hand a piece to the child. Their eyes light up as they take it, chewing contentedly. The old man glances at you and smiles a small acknowledgement, but one heavy with meaning. Sharing food even now feels more intimate than words. A curious archaeological detail from northern Europe notes that Ice Age shelters often show tiny individual hearths near family clusters, small fires used for cooking or warmth within the larger communal camp. It suggests a balance between unity and individuality, togetherness without losing self. Humans, it seems, have always needed both. You lean forward and add a stick to the fire. It flares briefly, painting your face in gold. The warmth reaches your fingertips. For a moment, you feel the echo of every fire that came before, every dawn revived, every night survived. The thought feels vast and comforting all at once. The hunters begin to stir. Their voices are low but steady, exchanging short words that sound like stone striking stone. The old man listens, nods, then gestures toward the cave's mouth. You follow his gaze. The weather outside is changing again, the light sharper, the wind carrying a subtle shift in tone. There's movement in the air, faint but certain. The world is turning towards spring. Historians studying pollen layers from the late Ice Age suggest that such transitions weren't sudden but sensed. Tiny thaws, gentler winds, new smells carried on the air, all small clues that told humans the seasons were changing. Those early people read the land like a living map. They knew the difference between snow that would melt and snow that would stay. You step outside, the cold kissing your cheeks. The horizon gleams brighter today, the snow's surface shimmering under a thin crust of melting ice. From somewhere nearby comes the sound of dripping water, a music you haven't heard in months. You follow it to the cave's edge, where the icicles are melting, drop by drop. Each one falls with a tiny sound, soft as heartbeat. You tilt your head back and watch sunlight fracture through the frozen shapes. The air smells faintly of minerals, damp stone, and distant pine. You realize that this is the first smell of thaw, the scent of the world remembering how to live again. A peculiar detail noted by environmental archaeologists is that Ice Age humans could detect seasonal shifts through smell long before visual signs appeared. The earth itself changed fragrance with temperature, the soil breathing differently when life began to stir beneath it. To those who depended on it, scent was not aesthetic, it was knowledge. You call softly to the others, and soon they join you at the cave's mouth. The child reaches for the dripping icicle, laughing when the cold water touches their palm. The woman smiles, cupping her own hands to catch a few drops. She drinks, then gestures for you to do the same. You hesitate, then follow. The water is shockingly clear, almost sweet. It feels alive. Most anthropologists agree that early humans saw water as sacred not because it was rare, but because it was rebirth itself. When ice turned to liquid, it meant hope, movement, hunting, life. In myths reconstructed from later oral traditions, water was often the first god, both giver and destroyer. You can see why. In the Ice Age, nothing else could transform a landscape so completely. You turn back toward the fire, its smoke curling lazily into the mild air. For the first time, you notice birdsong faint, distant, but unmistakable. The sound seems impossible after so many silent months. Everyone freezes for a moment, listening. The child gasps. The old man closes his eyes, as if the melody is too beautiful to bear. A curious fragment found in an Ice Age burial site included a bird bone carved with tiny holes, one of the earliest flutes ever discovered. Scholars believe it was modeled on birdsong, a way for humans to imitate the return of life in sound. You imagine the first player standing just like this, listening to the thaw, trying to echo its rhythm. You find yourself humming softly, matching the distant chirp. The sound feels clumsy at first, then easier. The others join in, their voices weaving through yours until the air itself seems to vibrate with warmth. It isn't music exactly. It's communication between species, between eras. The sound of the living acknowledging the living. The hunters set off soon after, their spears gleaming in sunlight. The rest of you begin to prepare the camp. The old man gestures toward the cave's wall and starts redrawing the fire symbols in soot this time. Slower, more deliberate. He adds a small curved line above them, perhaps meaning the sun, perhaps meaning renewal. You add one beside it, a droplet shape, small and perfect. He nods approvingly. Historians of symbolic behavior sometimes argue that the earliest writing systems weren't born from numbers or trade, but from gratitude marks left behind to thank the elements themselves. The fire, the water, the sky, all memorialized in soot and gesture. You believe it. The marks on the wall feel less like communication and more like communion. The day fades gently into gold. The fire burns bright, but you can feel that the cold's power has shifted. The land is loosening its grip. The snow's surface softens underfoot. The air no longer smells like fear. You lie down beside the fire, the furs warm against your skin. The old man hums once more, low and steady. The sound mingles with the dripping water and the faint trill of birds. You close your eyes, the melody carrying you towards sleep. Experts still debate when exactly the Ice Age began to end. What triggered the long thaw? Some say it was cosmic, others say it was cyclical. But you think of this moment of warmth, of voices, of a droplet landing on your wrist, and you know that endings are rarely sudden. They happen quietly, like melting ice. One drop, then another, until the whole world changes without realizing it. As you drift into dreams, you picture the ember inside your shell, still glowing softly, its warmth carrying forward through every thaw, every dawn, every lifetime. And outside, the icicles keep dripping the quiet applause of the earth waking up. The snow thins by the third dawn. Patches of earth dark, glistening, full of scent emerge between the pale crusts. It feels unreal to see color again after months of white. The sky itself has softened. The sun hangs higher, less an enemy, more a companion. You stand at the cave's mouth and stretch, your spine cracking, your breath forming a smaller cloud than it used to. The air no longer bites, it brushes. Behind you, the old man stirs the fire one last time. The smoke drifts gently through the clearing, pale grey against the sky. The group begins to gather their things. The furs rolled, the meat divided, the shell wrapped carefully in moss. The ember is faint but alive, pulsing with that ancient patience. You check it twice, then nod. It has survived again. Most archaeologists agree that this shift in climate, warmer days, longer seasons, marked a turning point in human life. Populations spread north, plants returned, and the Ice Age began to loosen its thousand-year grip. But no one experienced that end in a single moment. For those living it, it must have felt like this: gradual, hopeful, fragile, a quiet unfolding of color. You step outside, your boots sinking not into snow this time, but damp soil. The smell hits you instantly: mud, grass, thawing moss. It's thick, rich, intoxicating. You crouch down, run your fingers through it. The texture shocks you: soft, warm, alive. A curious finding in ancient soil layers shows that Ice Age humans responded to the first thaws by collecting new plants, seeds, roots, herbs, and storing them alongside meat. It was the dawn of agriculture's idea: curiosity about what grows. You can feel that same instinct now, kneeling with dirt under your nails, wondering if this could become something more than just ground. The others come outside too. The woman holds the child up toward the light. The little one squints, then laughs, a sound so pure it seems to echo off the melting ice. You realize that this might be their first memory of sunlight that doesn't sting. The old man raises his hand toward the sky, palm out as if greeting an old friend. Historians sometimes call this moment the first consistent thaw, the awakening of reverence for the Sunday. Before temples, before myth, before gods with names, there was this simple act: human eyes squinting upward in gratitude. The warmth that no longer punished became a promise. You gather wood for a new fire, though it's hardly needed now. The air itself feels warm enough to breathe without pain. Still, habit and devotion compel you to build. The fire is not only heat anymore, it's identity. You arrange the sticks carefully, place the ember at the center, and breathe. The flame rises easily this time, as though eager to see the new season. A peculiar discovery in southern France revealed an ancient hearth ringed with flower pollen, possibly laid there after the snowmelt. Scientists believe these were among the first symbolic decorations, a celebration of spring. The flowers, pressed flat by time, are still visible in the soil. You imagine this very scene repeated across continents. Humanity, kneeling in gratitude to color. The hunters return early, carrying not meat but handfuls of roots and shoots. They smell faintly of sap. One holds up a green sprig like a trophy. Everyone laughs. Even the old man, whose smile is usually a small secret, grins wide. He crushes the sprig between his fingers, inhaling deeply. The scent, sharp, bitter, beautiful, fills the air. Experts still debate whether Ice Age humans celebrated seasonal change or simply endured it. But endurance, too, can become celebration when it's shared. The laughter that ripples through your group proves it. Survival has turned to joy. You cook together again that night, though this time the meal feels different. There's less fear, less urgency. You roast roots beside meat, just to see what happens. The smell that rises is astonishing: sweet, smoky, alive. The child claps, delighted. You taste it and laugh aloud. You've just invented flavor all over again. Anthropologists studying residues on cooking stones suggest that the combination of meat and plant was a pivotal step in culinary evolution. It was experimentation born from plenty, a declaration that survival could be playful. You understand that now. You're not just living, you're living well. As dusk falls, you sit with the others around the fire. The light is golden, not red. The smoke carries upward without clinging. The air tastes clean. You look around and notice how everything has changed subtly, how shoulders are no longer hunched, how laughter comes quicker, how silence feels lighter. The world is softening, and so are you. The old man traces one last spiral in the dirt beside the fire. His hand trembles slightly. You join him, adding another smaller spiral within his. The shape feels familiar now, life folding into itself, never ending, always beginning. The woman adds one more, looping hers around both. 3 spirals intertwined. You don't need to name it. The meaning hums quietly between you. Some scholars suggest that the spiral is humanity's oldest universal symbol. Found carved in Ice Age caves across continents, it may have represented fire, time, or the breath of life itself. But to you, here, it simply means continuity, the warmth that keeps going, no matter how often the world freezes. As the night deepens, you lie back on the thawing ground. The earth radiates faint heat upward, a reminder that even cold landscapes remember warmth. The stars are clear tonight, sharp as ice but friendly somehow. You can almost feel them watching. The fire crackles nearby, steady, confident. The child sleeps beside the woman, their faces illuminated softly. The old man hums again, voice thin but strong, threading through the air like a line of smoke. The melody has no beginning or end, it just exists, circular and calm. No one's quite sure when music became art instead of necessity, but in this moment, it doesn't matter. The song is simply what the night needs to breathe. You let your eyelids drift shut, the warmth from the earth blending with the warmth from the flame. The smell of thaw and smoke fills your lungs. The fire's rhythm slows, syncing with your heart until the two beats become one. Historians still discuss whether the end of the Ice Age was catastrophe or rebirth. Maybe it was both. Every ending carries a little of each. You think of the frozen world that raised you the storms, the wolves, the endless nights, and realize it never truly left. It simply melted into memory. The world is still changing, still thawing, and you, curled beside the last great fire of winter, are changing with it. Tomorrow, when you wake, the snow might be gone entirely, the ground might smell of flowers, the ember you carry will still glow, and in that glow will live everything the cold ever tried to erase. The next morning, the world is almost unrecognizable. The snow that once buried everything has retreated into patches, thin, glistening ribbons clinging to shadows. Between them, the land exhales. Wet soil, grass blades sharp as emerald needles, tiny flowers trembling in the cold breeze. You step outside the cave, and for the first time in months your breath doesn't fog. The air smells of thaw, of sap, of beginnings. Behind you, the fire has burned to soft grey ash. You kneel, stir it once with a stick, and uncover the ember at its core. It glows faintly, as if reluctant to leave its bed. You smile, cupping your hands around it, feeling its pulse against your palms. This ember, small, unassuming, has crossed storms and darkness and endless white with you. It has been your constant companion, your memory, your teacher. Archaeologists studying charred remains in ancient hearths sometimes find embers preserved under layers of ash still intact after thousands of years. It's as if the earth itself decided to cradle the last spark of a night long vanished. In a way, that's what you've done too, carried memory through frost until warmth became history. The others are stirring. The old man steps out into the sunlight, blinking, then laughing quietly to himself. The woman follows, the child clutching her leg, eyes wide with wonder. The hunters emerge last, carrying their spears like relics of an age already fading. Together, you stand on the threshold between two worlds, one frozen, one alive. Experts say the end of the Ice Age was not abrupt, but gradual, a shifting of rhythm, a long exhale after millennia of tension. The people who lived through it didn't witness apocalypse or miracle. They simply felt the world change its mind. You feel it too, in the way the wind no longer stings but brushes, in the way the ground gives slightly beneath your feet. The cold isn't gone, it's just quieter, more forgiving. You sense that something vast has turned a page, and that your story continues on the next one. The old man gestures for you to kneel beside the dying fire. You obey, holding out the ember in your shell. He places his hand above yours, the weight of it trembling but sure. Then, with deliberate care, he scoops a handful of soil and drops it onto the ember, not to kill it, but to let it rest. The smoke curls upward, pale and soft. The smell of ash mixes with the smell of new grass. Most anthropologists agree that burial was one of humanity's earliest forms of gratitude. The same gesture that honored the dead also honored what had sustained life. When you bury a fire, You're not extinguishing it, you're giving it back to the world that lent it to you. You stay kneeling long after the smoke fades. Around you, the group begins to move. The hunters shoulder their packs. The woman ties the child onto her back, and the old man leans on his staff, looking toward the open plain. His expression is quiet, pride, the look of someone who has seen winter yield to spring more than once and never stopped marveling at it. You rise and follow him. The ground squelches softly underfoot, alive with meltwater. Streams ribbon between rocks, their surfaces glittering with sunlight. You stop to cup your hands and drink. The water is cold but sweet, tasting faintly of iron and moss. You think of all the nights you would have traded anything for this single, easy sip. A peculiar find in a now green valley once sealed by ice revealed footprints, hundreds of them pressed deep into mud and fossilized by time. Men, women, children, animals all walking together toward warmth. The prints are still visible, a frozen moment of motion captured forever. You imagine your own feet leaving similar marks, soon to fade, then to endure. You walk until the cave behind you is only a shadow in the distance. The sun climbs higher. Birds follow you overhead, tracing slow arcs through the sky. The air is full of sound now, trickling water, buzzing insects, laughter from the child. It's overwhelming, this new noise of life. But it's beautiful too. Historians still debate what early humans felt when the ice began to vanish. Relief, surely. Fear, perhaps. But maybe, more than anything, they felt awe. To watch the land come alive again must have felt like witnessing rebirth, not of the world, but of themselves. You stop at a rise in the earth and look back one last time. The valley below glitters where the snow once suffocated it. Your fire's smoke has vanished completely, its warmth now part of the soil. You can almost imagine that somewhere beneath the thaw, your ember still glows quietly, becoming part of the planet's pulse. The old man joins you on the rise. He touches your shoulder and points toward the distance, where the land darkens into forest. There will be new challenges ahead, rivers to cross, animals to track, perhaps even other fires to find. But for now, you simply nod. You know what to do. Keep walking, keep warming, keep remembering. Most scholars agree that this persistence, the refusal to stop carrying light, is what defined the species that survived. Fire may have begun as a tool, but it became something far deeper, a mirror for the human spirit. To keep a flame alive, even when everything around you froze, was to declare that existence itself was worthy. You turn toward the forest. The ground hums softly beneath your feet, water running somewhere below. The air feels different now, not heavy, not biting, just present. For the first time, you don't feel like a visitor to this world. You feel like part of it. The old man starts walking. The woman follows. The child giggles, trying to catch a butterfly that flutters just ahead. The hunters laugh and call after them. You take one last look at the pale horizon, at the place where winter still lingers like a memory. And then you walk too into the warmth, into the green, into the next chapter of humanity's long, unfolding story. The Ice Age sleeps behind you. Ahead lies everything else. The fire has dimmed now. The snow is long gone. The world has settled into its quiet rhythm once more. And you, too, can rest. Imagine it, the soft weight of the fur around your shoulders, the earth still warm beneath your hands, the air smelling faintly of smoke and early flowers. There's no need to move anymore. Just breathe. The people from your journey have found their peace. The old man has laid down his staff. The child sleeps easily, face turned toward sunlight. Somewhere under the soil, the final ember rests a small, perfect memory of warmth that will never quite die. You can feel it, can't you? That glow, that steady pulse, somewhere deep within you too. It's the same one that's carried every dreamer, every survivor, every quiet human night from the beginning of time. Let the rhythm of that thought slow your breathing. Let it soften your muscles, the way the snow once softened the earth. The wind outside your window is gentler now, the night less cold. You've made it through the long winter, and morning will come soon. In the hush between one breath and the next, you realize something tender. We are all descendants of those who refused to let the fire go out. Every spark you've ever seen, every candle, every light in a window traces its ancestry back to that first ember in the ice. So, as you drift towards sleep, hold that warmth close. It belongs to you now, the inheritance of survival, of care, of quiet courage. The fire never ended. It only changed hands. Good night. Sleep well. The world is warm again.